Good evening. Would everyone please rise? We'll begin with an opening prayer by Alderman Wilson.
Almighty God, we ask for your blessing upon the members of this council as we assemble here in this chamber to conduct the ongoing business of our city. With your guidance, we will strive to ensure that all our decisions are for the common good, and your inspiration will instill respect, compassion, and thoughtfulness in our deliberations. Give us the strength and the wisdom to lead by example as the people's representative, and place peace and harmony will mark all our proceedings, and keep us faithful to the trust placed in us by the citizens of your community. Amen.
Amen. Yeah. Alderman Singh, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. At this time, I'd seek a motion, please, from the floor to adoption of the minutes of December 5th and 19th, 2022. Alderman Wilson, second Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you. The motion is adopted 7-0.
Public hearing. Number 1, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the City of Norwich, creating a business master plan district.
Thank you. At this time, I declare that the public hearing that was continued is now open. And the purpose tonight is to hear new evidence and comment. At this time, I'd like to call on Mr. Kevin Brown, please.
Good evening, Kevin Brown, President of NCDC 66 Franklin Street. First, I just want to simply open by thanking both the public and this body for your patience and temperance and willingness to have the dialogue on this matter. It's a very complex matter, requires a lot of explanation. I think it's a good signal that we've taken the time to have this thorough and extensive of a conversation about it. At the end of the day, this is about creating economic opportunity for the city of Norwich that can reduce the tax burden on our taxpayers by way of nearly $6.15 million at full build-out and provide employment opportunities in the thousands. Tonight, our primary remaining objective, as you stated leading in, Mr. Mayor, is to present any final evidence, and we wish to do so very simply by doing two things: demonstrating that we have listened to the public comment period, and we responded by doing two things, and that is, where necessary and feasible, we have amended the initial ordinance that is before you tonight, and Attorney Block will go over those changes in some detail, those amendments in some detail, and that we wish to reiterate and reinforce the expert testimony and conclusions made by experts that we have engaged for over 8 to 10 months in reviewing this project and bringing it to this point. And the team will provide some specific evidence on those matters as well. We have, as a result of this, not just this past 8 to 10 months, but certainly these last couple of months of review, included recreational trails, eliminated a road crossing, changed buffers for abutting residential properties, changed building heights in the more dense urban areas, and importantly ensured compliance with the subsections of Section 3.11 of the initial ordinance established in 2021, allowing for this business master plan development. And very specifically within that, we have met all of the necessary requirements as identified by the third-party reviewer that he highlighted for you in the last hearing. Specifically, those are that this plan is in conformity with the city's plan on conservation and development, thing number one. That this plan has demonstrated the potential for substantial economic opportunity, which we've talked about on a number of occasions, thing number two. And thing number three, that it is compatible with the uses in the neighboring area, which has been the subject of most of the conversation, and as I have indicated, we have taken into account and made adjustments to ensure that it is in fact compatible. That's the evidence we'll present to you tonight. I'll be followed now by Attorney Block, who will go into some detail.
Thank you.
Good evening. Mark Block, Counsel in the Norwich Community Development Corporation. I'm here this evening to complete the record for NCDC's application, and we would like to submit additional documents and evidence together with the proposed amended ordinance. We would like to address comments made by the public concerning the plant and animal life on the property and our site investigation. There are 2 studies that were done during the course of our due diligence of the site and to address the regulatory requirements. One study was by the state, was a report by the State Historic Preservation Office, which generated a letter dated November 17, 2022, which I'd like to introduce in evidence, which I believe would be Exhibit Q. What I'd like to do is call your attention to page 3 of the report of this letter, which states that based upon the information provided to our office, it is the opinion of SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, that no historic properties will be affected by this proposed development. The second letter is a letter from DEEP, which addresses plant and animal species on the properties. I'd like to introduce that as Exhibit R. This letter dated November 28, 2022, is a result of a study which took about 8 months to get it done. And it addresses the plant and animal species, and the relevant sections of the letter are on page 1, bottom of the section that says protection for state-listed plant species, and it concludes, no additional conservation action is required for the state-listed plant species. The second noteworthy section says protection for state-listed amphibian and reptile species, and the relevant section is on the second page, top paragraph, which says, the report indicated that no state-listed amphibians or reptiles were found in the project area. So we believe we've addressed those 2 issues. The third issue is a traffic report, which is already part of the record and prepared by CDM Smith. It was attachment 8 to the original submission and application made by NCDC. And in relevant section, that report states, in conclusion, the planned Norwich Industrial Park development will not create a significant impact to the adjacent roadway system and the nearby study area. And this was an extensive report that CDM Smith addressed, part of the record, and concluded that there was no significant impact to the roadway system. We would also like to present an amended ordinance. This amendment adds to the ordinance and was presented at the last hearing, and there's also an addendum that was presented at the last hearing. It combines those And it has also made an amended ordinance to comply with the charter. And combines and adds the uses that we've already in the record and conditions of approval. And I'd like to present this amended ordinance as an exhibit. What this proposed amended ordinance does is adds the uses that are contained within the existing zoning and adds it to the business master plan district, and that's on page 2. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 uses. These were presented at the last hearing. These were read into the record at the last hearing, and they've been added to this ordinance as an amendment to comply with the charter requirements. Secondly, we are proposing certain conditions which were reviewed at the last hearing should the council approve this ordinance. These are on page 2, and it says at the middle of the section, the approval of the master plan is conditioned on the following, and lists subsections A through F. If the council wants, I can read all these changes into the record, or the city clerk can read them.
I would ask that you read them into the record, please.
Mr. Mayor, do you want me to read the entire ordinance into the record from start to finish? Or just the conditions?
I would focus on the changes, and the
Okay.
conditions.
Okay, the changes that were presented at the last hearing, on the top of page 2, it says that the business master plan district includes these uses specified in section 3.11.5.6, plus the following additional uses: business, corporate, and professional offices, healthcare, technology, research industries, advanced medical equipment, pharmaceuticals, and biotechnology facilities, technology research and development, government buildings and facilities, car wash facilities as part of a truck stop, clinical and medical offices, public utility facilities. That the master plan shall be shown as shown on a plan entitled Bowler Overall Master Plan, sheet number EX-01 for Norwich Community Development Corporation, date December 4, 2022, including approval of the road as shown on the plan. Then, as regards the conditions of approval, it says the approval of the master plan is conditioned on the following: A, architectural design of each building constructed within the business master plan district is subject to approval as per section 3.11.5.2. B, street lighting be consistent with section 3.11.5.5. C, minimum front, side, and rear yards be as follows: front yard 20 feet, side yard 20 feet, rear yard 20 feet. In the event that any parcel adjoins a residentially zoned property, the minimum buffer shall be 50 feet. D, maximum building height shall be 80 feet, except that no building constructed east of Canterbury Turnpike shall exceed 60 feet. E, signage shall be designed pursuant to the attached signage standards, and those standards are attached after page 3. F, parking requirements pursuant to section 3.11.5.4 shall be subject to approval of the Commission of the City Plan in connection with site plan approval for each parcel within the Business Master Plan District. And we would ask your consideration, if you adopt the Business Master Plan pursuant to this ordinance, that this ordinance be the ordinance that is approved as amended. We believe that these address all the public comment that Mr. Mr. Brown has stated and as reflected in the ordinance and the evidence been submitted tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, is there anyone here who has not spoken on this ordinance that it was originally proposed several meetings back? Again, we're looking for new evidence at this time. Is there anyone who has not had an opportunity to speak to address the concept of this business plan before the council, please? Let me ask that a different way. Is there anyone here who has new evidence to submit at this time? Is there anyone? Mr. Braddock?
Hello, my name is Tucker Braddock. I live at 868 Scotland Road. Is there any illustration as to where the 50-foot buildings can be or 80-foot buildings can be on the overall plan? Can we show that on the screen so everybody can see it?
The people that are here presented new evidence and the change as they requested, I have to defer to them.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Resnikoff is here as well. If you could approach Mr. Resnikoff so that you're
We're going to present it in the good old-fashioned analog way rather than on...
perfect. Okay.
So it'll be fine. But while we're digging for the right board, let me just simply say that it's the 50-foot abutment is for any and all properties that, or I should say buffer, is for any and all properties that abut residential. And so, I'll turn that around for the council. The densely populated residential areas here, the city of Connecticut Turnpike, and you have properties over here. If I missed one, forgive me. We would find it. Any property that abuts the business park with that 50-foot buffer. That's the answer to that part of the question. Your question regarding the building heights suggested once again, yet again, forgive me, that it's 80 feet everywhere. And that in the last two hearings has led to confusion where people assume that every building was going to be 80 feet tall. And in fact, that's not the case. It's a design parameter, not a design standard. But recognizing the concern, if the buildings are constructed west of Canterbury Turnpike, these larger structures out here in the bulk of the farm area, they will still maintain the 80-foot design standard. But the ones that are here along Canterbury Turnpike, in the vicinity of where the more densely populated area is, now have a limitation of a height of 60 feet. Let me reiterate, that's a design parameter, not a design standard. That just says they can't go higher than 60. What I don't want to do is tell you that, therefore, none of them will be 60. But the design parameter is designed to make sure that we don't exceed it. In reality, 20, 30, maybe 40 feet is the height of types of buildings that go there. As an example, one of them is a 10,000 square foot building. It's not going to be 60 feet tall. So I hope that answers the question. And I don't know if the council needs me to go over that again. The 50-foot buffer applies throughout for anybody who's buffering, or I should say abutting the park. This is all not residential abutment area. The 60-foot standard, which is an adjust down from what was the initially proposed 80-foot standard throughout, is for the areas over here by Canterbury Turnpike where there is more residential zone abutting those business park building developments. But these are all small buildings, and as I was explaining, aren't likely to go above 40 feet anyway. 60 feet just gives us the flexibility for design.
You still have the floor, sir.
Thank you for your clarification.
Is there anyone here who would like to submit new evidence or has a new question at this time? Please.
Charlie Witt, 511 Canterbury Turnpike. Coincidentally, this last Sunday, I watched 60 Minutes, probably like the rest of you have. During that one segment, they had professional people speaking about open space in the United States, in the States, and in the world, and how we're industrializing every piece of open space in this world. And it's killing us. I took it upon myself to drive around Norwich, went to Shipping Street. There's a mention of rail. You have perfect rail there. You have the old Doyle Oil, Lehigh, all them buildings down there that are falling down. What more do you want? I say, keep Norwich beautiful, tear down the ugly.
Thank you. Is there anyone with new evidence concerning the Business Park North at this time? And is there anyone with new evidence, Business Park North, at this time? Please, yes.
Jeanette Witt, 511 Canterbury Turnpike. I'm not in politics. This is my first go-around with this, and I have to say I've learned a lot, none of which I like. My biggest concern at this point with the project is this gentleman here from NCDC at the last meeting said to all of us that they are only asking for a zone change, and that if that went through and any applicant coming into the industrial park would have to go before you, before it was agreed. But a gentleman that was hired from the city planning office, I hope he's still here, he said, not true. He said that any applicant would not have to come before you. So that tells me that anybody can come in anywhere and build anything. Now, I'm asking, is that true or not?
Would you like the applicant to respond?
I would like both the applicant and this gentleman.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity. I actually had written in my notes up front to apologize for making that mistake the last time I was up here. I scratched it because I didn't want this to turn into the same kind of conversation we had the last time. But I do apologize for that error, and I do thank Mr. Poland for correcting it. But let's put a fine point on it. I was mistaken in saying that this body would have to review each and every tenant applicant. But the fact is they do still have to come back for approval. Instead, it will go to the Commission on the City Plan for approval. So there is no free-for-all, there is no lack of discipline or rigor in the approval process. But I was wrong in stating that it was this body. It's the Commission on City Plan that will do that final review. And I don't know if Mr. Poland cares to or would like to respond to that.
For the record, Donald Poland, Gilman York Property Advisors, 111 Founders Plaza, East Hartford, Connecticut. I agree with Kevin's presentation there. I don't think it was intentional on the part of NCDC to state that. But essentially, the process before you now is the establishment of the master plan regulation and the master plan zoning district. The specifics of individual site plans then go before the Commission on the City Plan. Therefore, any development coming forward would need additional approvals from that entity and potentially other city agencies. When I speak again later, if I speak again later, I'll address something else more generally, but that issue has been corrected, I believe.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak with new evidence at the, yes, miss?
Hi, good evening. Peggy Cherrick, 252 Old Canterbury Turnpike. I know I've heard it a couple of times saying that you're keeping the 60-foot building in the most dense areas, but that's not true. The area that Mr. Brown's pointed out isn't the most dense area. You have Sunny Waters Mobile Home Park that has over 120 families there. That, I believe, is the most dense area, which is actually butting up against the larger flat area where I think the 80-foot buildings are going to be put. You know, so just want to clarify that the area along Scotland Road and stuff, you know, it is a dense area, but it's not the most densely populated area. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. If I heard them correctly, I want to put this on the record. I'm going to ask council members if they have questions they'd like to place on the record too in a moment. That is a residential area, and therefore the buffer from their sites would be 50 feet. Is that not correct? Mr. Brown?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor, but the young lady's point was about building height, not standoff. We're going to get into a...
I get that.
So that's her concern, and it's legitimate. What I would offer is that between the planned solar array, which really, whether a solar array lands there or not, it's unaccessible property. We can't build on it. Between that buffer that area creates in the current master plan and the buffer created by the natural water feature on the west side of the mobile home park, there is a significant, well beyond 50-foot buffer, and I don't know that we can here on the fly assess what that distance is. But there's a significant standoff that keeps an 80-foot building from looming right over the top of the mobile home park.
Thank you. For the record, there are no buildings approved. There are no companies at this time.
There are no buildings approved. And to the earlier question, all of these are conceptual placements that would be subject to coming back before the Commission on City Plan for ultimate approval. I just want to make a clarification, though, on the matter of there being no companies, because we are actively now marketing, trying to find legitimate users of this parcel, and we do have some folks in play, and I wouldn't want it to be a matter of record that we don't have anybody. But the important part is there's no combination of tenant and actual building design that has come together that's permanent in any way, shape, or form right now, which goes back to the point, any final plan would come back for review before the Commission on City Plan.
And just for the record, I'm going to start the process because I have a question. It's my memory, if the city does not receive the funding in applying for federal dollars to build out the improved exit 18 ramp and the interior roads, nothing will ever be done.
That's right. I mean, this is all contingent upon the receipt of a significant amount of state and federal funding to create the infrastructure that allows the kind of access that we want. And if I could, I'd just like to say that a different way. That area is already currently zoned as planned development district and general commercial. What we're trying to do is create a situation and an environment where we can compel federal and state officials to give us the funding to create this arterial road that then keeps traffic off of the local roads. If we don't get those steps in order, those parcels are still zoned for commercial development and could be built out as such with none of this road improvement that we're pursuing. And instead, that would potentially put put commercial traffic on the local roadways. But again,
Yep.
just to go back to the same important question, but any of those future developments that might come in the general commercial and planned development district area would have to come through the Commission on City Plan for ultimate approval.
Thank you. Members of council, anyone wishing to have a dialogue, ask questions of the applicant?
Are we still in a public hearing?
Yeah, oh, yes. The intent is that our statements are part of the public record itself. Yes, we are.
Then
Yeah,
I do have a...
please, President Pro Tem, please.
Mr. Brown? I have a couple of questions. So you just touched upon what was going to be my first question, which was, what is the purpose of this change and why is it required? If I'm understanding all of what has been presented to us over the last 6 weeks or so, the overlay gives us a greater amount of control over what actually gets built there than if we were to leave it alone as a PDD and, slash GC, because it's spread all over the map, where we would actually have less control, less say, and less footing to stand on to say what can and cannot go there. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement. We're being purposeful and intentional about what we're trying to have happen there, rather than let it just sort of hodgepodge happen along the way. Yes.
My second question, and kind of hypothetically says, all right, if this were to move forward, what would the anticipated public benefits to the city be in creation of this master district, Business Park North, in terms of taxes, employment, quality of life? You mentioned the revenue, anticipated revenue, complete build out, but could you take that a couple more concentric circles out for us?
Before I stretch it out, let me just say that some of this is modeled off of our known revenues that we generate from the existing business park, which I believe are in the neighborhood of $7.1 million in net public benefit. So when you look at the acreage and square footage that will become available at Business Park North, and you add together the real estate taxes that'll be in the neighborhood of $3.1 million, the personal property taxes that are in the neighborhood of close to another $2 million, and then the utility revenues, which are by themselves roughly $7 million, which then results in a 10% shed back to the city. The aggregate net public benefit to the city of Norwich is, at full build-out, let me be very clear about that, at full build-out is nearly $6 million. And that could represent a mill or two on the tax rate. I mean, it helps this tax burden community in the way that growing the grand list is intended to help a tax burden community like ours. That's really just the beginning. You want to go out a couple levels, then we have all along been working to secure a position inside of the offshore wind industry. There's a national imperative to build out 300 gigawatts of offshore wind along the coast of New England and down along New Jersey and on down to Florida. A significant, about a third or almost 40% of those wind turbines are within, a good throw from the state pier in New London. And so what we are looking at, and this is you said, let's hypothesize. What we're looking at is the fact that right now that entire industry is captured. It's captured by 3 big industrial manufacturers of those wind turbines. Ultimately, there will come a day when that monopoly that they share can't continue to exist because the U.S. will domesticate the production of the pieces and parts of those wind turbines. There was an assumption made by the general public as we've gone through this that we were going to be building the entire 400-foot tall wind turbine up in Occam. That is not the idea. I'll say it again, at the top of that sits an engine about as big as City Hall, or maybe half of City Hall. And inside of that engine, there are 8,000 component parts. The hypothetical reach here, the strategic look, is one day we want Norwich to be making those parts so that they can just go 20 miles down the road, get assembled in New London at the State Pier, and ship out to the ocean 23 to 50 miles away. That will generate thousands of manufacturing jobs. So that's another of the net public benefits that come from this. And then finally, and there's probably more, but finally, the utility revenues generated by these users in this business park will at a minimum help stabilize what are ever-increasing utility rates for all of the customers that NPU has by their massive production of utility revenues that allows NPU to assess what the ratepayers' rates look like. So those are just some of the benefits.
Just to follow up on that, but we're not, would it be fair to say, I don't want to ask it as a question, would it be also fair to say that we're not hanging our hopes entirely on the wind industry for this whole project? There's got to be more iron in the fire than just that.
This plan came along, let me be just blatantly honest, this plan came along long before I ever arrived here on planet NCDC and joined with my teammates. Because the marketing studies had shown long before this offshore wind opportunity presented itself that this portion of the 395, 90 corridor between Boston and New York present an enormous amount of opportunity for transportation, logistics, manufacturing that's currently going unmet. So even if we don't ultimately have the offshore wind opportunity, there are plenty of other opportunities that the survey by Cushman and Wakefield demonstrate in all the documents that we've provided on this.
So with that in mind, will there be any direct competition between businesses in the business parks, plural, and between each other? I mean, we certainly wouldn't want to have two business parks in competition with each other, right? But also businesses in our neighborhood commercial zones, right? You know.
We are talking here. The answer is you cannot eliminate all potential competition that could come, but we certainly are marketing to two different audiences. There may be some things on the margin that could land both in the Stanley Israelite Park or the new business park or in 7,000 square feet over there at 4 Willow Street, right down here. For the folks who think we're not looking at all of the available space, we look at it every day. We know where all these open spaces are. And there's not a day that goes by that I'm not trying to shoehorn somebody into one of the existing open spaces across the city. So there won't be competition at the largest scale. These are two different types of industrial pursuits. The 21st century technology, the heavy load-bearing floors, the high bay door ceilings are all things for emerging industry, but there'll still be room for the Stanley Israelite Park Business Park to maintain its level of occupancy as well. It's those smaller businesses that I can't stand here and tell you that they could end up anywhere.
I just have one more.
The floor is yours.
To address the comment earlier, what percent, and spitball this if you have to, but give us a rough percent of the total acreage that is not suitable for development, that would end up being just open, whether because it's wetlands or just...
At this master plan?
At this point, yeah, right, again.
So the entire parcel constitutes 384 acres. The developable acres, as we are looking at it right now, are 184. And that delta is almost purely, and let me look to my experts, almost purely wetlands that are eliminating our ability to be on it. Plus or minus, pretty close.
79 acres of wetlands and the rest of it is basically
Unbuildable.
I'm sorry, but we need that on the public record, please.
If you don't mind, I got it. Yeah. So of that delta, 79 acres is actually wetlands, and the rest of it, the balance of that number is just because it's unbuildable. Slope, ledge, whatever the other matters might be.
So just to follow up, so even though we do not have any endangered or species of concern, those would still be habitats for wildlife.
That's exactly right. And the deep letter that we received goes on to talk about all the things that we'll do to make sure that it stays that way.
That's all I had.
Thank you, sir.
If I'd have Mr. Evercore put that up, a statement on the record.
I think Mr. Brown just did.
Excuse me, Henry, could you please, the numbers you talked about specifically.
Yeah, I didn't hear it either.
Yeah, please state your name.
Henry Resnikoff, 6 Main Street, Centerbrook, Connecticut, RFP Inc. As Kevin said, the total site is 384 acres. There's 185 acres that are developable. Of the balance, 79 acres are pure wetland, which cannot be touched in any form. The balance are unbuildable acres, meaning that the slopes are too steep. They're just not accessible. They're pockets, things like that. That's what's out there. And to answer your question, I just did some quick math. It's roughly 50-50. So we're leaving about 50% open space.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Other members have questions at this time. Alderwoman Gould.
Why can't we build a business park north someplace else?
There is no other parcel that provides 184 contiguous acres for us to be able to do what it is we propose to do there. And that isn't from lack of looking or trying to find other locations. There's the property adjacent to the cemetery at exit 11, insufficient and essentially locked up from an access standpoint. And then, as many have said in the last month and a half of hearings, there's a lot of other spaces. But what I'd ask everybody to recognize and consider is, it's 7,000 feet at 4 Willow Street. It's 20,000 feet over at 355 West Main Street. And it doesn't allow for the kind of size of buildings and frankly, 21st century developed space that we need.
Okay. How are we going to protect the wetlands on the site?
Well, the simplest and almost primary answer is by not building on or near them. And I've tried to make a point and we don't have the diagram, don't need the diagram, but on that entire 7,000 feet of arterial road, there are approximately 200 feet that cross a wetland, 200 feet out of 7,200 linear feet of road that actually cross a wetland. And so in that regard, we're not traipsing through them in the development of this arterial road. The actual pads have been conceptually, reinforce that point, conceptually designed to ensure that runoff basins and overall design is significant enough, or I should say substantial enough, not to affect the wetlands in their current state. And I can call on Jeff Board if there's anything that I missed or that should be augmented today. Is it good? Yeah.
So since you brought up the roadway, or the potential roadway that we're going to build, who's going to maintain that roadway?
We've had that coordinating dialogue with Public Works. It will be theirs to maintain. I don't want to misspeak on the numbers. I might need to call on Mr. Resnikoff to back me up on this one, but over the 30-year life cycle of this linear roadway, we suspect that the overall cost is about $1.5 million over those 30 years, essentially $50,000 a year to maintain.
And then one more question, I'll yield the floor. NCDC has purchased the property. If this ordinance doesn't pass, what's next?
Fair question. And before I answer, I just want to highlight that to this point, there are many parallel actions that have had to have taken place. And at all times, we have taken every precaution to ensure that there was no conflict of interest with anybody involved, including and mostly recusal from involvement in any voting, particularly on this matter that we're talking about right now. Mm-hmm. And so we have secured financing. We closed on the property last Wednesday. Again, separate and apart from this conversation right here, because to answer your question, if this ordinance for some reason was not passed, we still have the same tax-burdened city of Norwich that still needs grand list growth so that it can generate net public benefit through tax and utility revenues back to the city. And that's something we're still going to have to pursue. And so with or without a master plan, the onus is still on us to do that and find the best and highest use of those parcels.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Singh?
Thank you. So the current traffic study allows this development, if I'm correct, without having any off-ramps or ramps built at all.
Henry, I need your help on this one, please. Before I even stumble into it, let's.
Thank you.
We need to
Yeah,
restate.
please state your name. Yes, sir.
Henry Resnikoff, 6 Main Street, Centerbrook, Connecticut, RFP Inc. To answer your question, the traffic study and the model that we've approached this with, which has been informally discussed with DOT, you can't formally go to them yet, is modeled after exit 75 in East Lyme, if you've been over to the Costco there. So in the interim, the idea is to use the existing southbound on-ramp and put signalization in that would allow access to the Artiella Road. So if we get funding for the road, but not the ramps right now, and also because of the time period it takes to get the permitting for the ramps, at the time we got money for the ramps and the permitting, we would then replace, take out the temporary signalization and put in the new ramps. It's exactly what they're doing at the Costco.
Okay.
Right down the line. So the site works in the short term, it works in the long term, 2 different ways.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And out of these 17 properties, currently, I believe some of them are also buildable for apartments and complex. And with this master plan, will it limit such kind of development?
Unlike the development of the Stanley Israelite Business Park, we are contemplating no residential inside of this 384-acre parcel. And in fact, the zoning that comes under the master plan doesn't allow for it.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Wilson, please.
Thank you. I just would like the gentleman from, that the planning department brought in to come to the podium and give us any other insight or information that you may not have given us at the last time, anything we should know further. Just, you got the floor.
I'm not sure if that's the easiest or most difficult question to answer. For the record, once again, Donald Poland with Goldman York Property Advisors, 111 Founders Plaza, East Hartford. Thank you, sir, for asking me to come up once again. A few points I'd just like to make. One is I think the applicants have gone a considerable distance in addressing concerns, some of which I raised back in October, others that have been raised throughout this process, this public hearing process, and are definitely in a better place. I want to just provide some clarity on process for the benefit of you, the council and zoning commission, and for the benefit of the public. The master plan approach is an approach that's becoming more common in the context of zoning and development. It gives more flexibility on the developer side or the applicant side, while at the same time it provides greater flexibility and in some ways greater protections to the municipality. As zoning is traditionally done, you establish a zone, you establish uses, you establish all the density requirements and so forth, and then everything that comes forward must comply with it. In this context, this overlay zone, if approved, is placed over the existing zoning. The existing zoning remains in place, so applications could still come forward under that existing zoning. But it gives the opportunity for additional applications to come through under the overlay zone, which is essentially being approved, the master plan zone. The master plan process as a zone change gives you guys broad legislative discretion on denial and on approval and denial. Broader than kind of the discretion that comes with site plan that's at the city plan. The reason for my verbose memos that I believe are in your packages is that the regulation as written for this application has some ambiguities in it. And from a conventional master plan process, it could be expected, or at least it was expected on my part, that greater detail be provided at this stage. That you'd see more of the size and massing of these buildings or the associated parking and so forth. And in that, your approval would kind of bind the site moving forward to that kind of rendering of what's going to be developed here. Now, with that said, I recognize the applicant doesn't have that much detail at this time, and therefore they've done things like proposed the additional buffer distance on residential, adjacent to residential properties, that they've limited the height request in the area to the east, and maintained the height at 80 feet, in the area to the west. If approved as presented to you right now, then ultimately the individual site plans go to the commission on the city plan, that then they have the discretion over the final details. As written, this regulation that you're functioning under, as I said, has some ambiguities in it. It delegates to a degree the design decisions to the commission on the city plan. At the same time, it also states that you, as the zoning commission, have the ability to determine that sufficient information has been submitted to make your decisions. So I believe you still have discretion to ask for more if you wanted more. What I want to be clear on, though, is that ultimately, once approved, whatever it is you approve, at this stage, then essentially the process is done with you. That applications will no specific development application will come to you in the future. They will go to the commission on the city plan. If, for any reason, the applicant wishes to do something different than what is conceptualized here, make a substantive change to the approved master plan, then that would have to come back to you for the modification to the overall master plan. So let's just say, one of the conceptualized sites, let's say the 500,000 square foot building. I probably picked the worst example, but let's say they decided that that was going to be two 150 square foot buildings, that they were going to be two individual developments. That would be a substantive change that would have to return to this body. That right now on that site, they could build one building up to 500,000 square feet, as shown here, but they couldn't build two buildings in its place. That would ultimately require the return to you. So as part of their amended ordinance put forth tonight, they've provided you with sign regulations. Hold on. Everything I have is in digital form except for this one sheet of paper. They've provided you with an appendix with sign regulations to guide the design of signage. They've also those other conditions they put forth, like establishing the setbacks, establishing the heights to the east and the west, and so forth. In those other conditions, they've cited the provisions for architectural design, and as they read right now in the provisions of this regulation, it goes to the Commission on the City Plan. They cite to the parking requirements as the guiding, the parking section in this regulation as guiding moving forward. That's one of those areas where I feel there's ambiguity. That section says something to the extent of parking based on industry standards. In a master plan process, I would typically expect those standards to be presented and established at this point. Therefore, the Commission on the City Plan knows how to review for compliance of the parking regulations. That being said, is it possible to approve this and have the City Plan Commission review those proposals and approve them as part of site plan? I believe that is a possibility. It may not be ideal, but it's possible. So my end statement to you is, at the end of the day, as a commission, and I just want to go back so I get that language right, in the ordinance, in the existing regulation that allows the establishment of this master plan, it says this plan shall provide sufficient information to review the proposal. And that, I think, ends up being my biggest comment to you, that you, as a body of authority here, have the ability to determine what is sufficient. And that if you believe the master plan should provide additional information and detail, then it's within your purview to request as such. I'll stop there and ask you if you have any other questions.
I'll yield the floor.
Thank you, sir. Other members of council have questions at this time? I will then. The amendment that they presented tonight to address a number of the concerns that we've heard at the other nights we had public hearings, do you consider that type of additional detail just in general?
What was your last phrase? Sorry.
Do you consider the amendment they've offered to us, the types of additional requirements or details or tall grass, some people call it that, getting into the reeds,
Yeah.
is that what you would consider an example of that?
Yeah. At the end of the day, they've provided you with a lot of information, additional information. If you go back to my initial review, they've provided standards for the bulk and area requirements. They've provided standards for, a specific standard for the buffers and so forth. And then everything that was read into the record tonight by Attorney Block all add to that body of the establishment of what this master plan zone is and the requirements that will need to be met moving forward. So basically now, just to kind of clarify that, the 50-foot buffer, any property in the park, in the master plan, that abuts a property of residential use will need to provide a 50-foot buffer to that property. And that needs to be complied with in the site plan stage at the commission on the city plan.
The 50-foot buffer does not directly speak, or does it directly speak to structures or even the properties within the concept of a development around a structure? Does it not include both?
No, it's at the property line adjacent to properties with residential use. So it guarantees a greater setback. It doesn't relate directly to height. As Kevin presented, Kevin's on that side of me, to the west, the provision is up to 80 feet. At this time, based on this plan, you have shown, the applicant has shown you footprints of potential maximum buildings, but it's only giving you that 2 dimension. It doesn't show you the vertical, the height. So we don't know if those buildings will be, 20 feet tall or 79 feet tall. Ultimately, when the application comes in for a specific site to develop, the City Plan Commission on the City Plan is gonna see the specifics of what's being proposed. This building is X square feet, it's X number of stories or feet high. This is how it's designed, this is the parking to go with it, this is the lighting, and so forth and so on. Right now, as proposed, the master plan leaves a lot of that open, open to interpretation at the City Plan Commission stage.
Thank you. Any other members have any other questions at this point? Yes, sir. Pro Tem, please.
Well, it's actually a question for you. Were you satisfied with that last answer? Because it seemed to me you were asking for the distance of that 50-foot buffer. Would it be to the edge of the building or to an edge of a parking lot or the edge of the first? Right? That's what I kind of took from your question, and I would.
I thought he said all of that, but if you clarify further, I mean.
Let me go to the regulation. One moment. Because I have way too many files. The way the regulation reads right now, that you're acting under to adopt this master plan, it says in section 3.11.5.8, buffers. The purpose of the buffer areas is to provide privacy from noise, light glare, and visual intrusion to residential dwellings in all locations where uses within the master plan abut the residential district exterior to the master plan. The city council, that is you at this stage, will carefully analyze any buffers between the master plan and the surrounding residential neighborhood and may tailor standard buffers to include enhanced landscaping, fences, walls, earthened landscape berms with due consideration to the relative height of the use on each side of the buffer. And then there's, I'm not going to read through all this, it then has standard provisions for buffers of a minimum of 25 feet with 10 feet of screening. Buffers may be reduced based on certain circumstances, and then something on accessory uses that would permit access roads, pedestrian sidewalks, and utilities, mailboxes, and approved signs to exist within those buffers areas. So one, I would say as interpreted right now, the 50-foot buffer applies to parking lots, it applies to buildings. As this provision's written here, though, it conceptualizes that you would maybe see a third dimension of height in individual buildings at this stage, and therefore carefully analyze any buffer between the master plan and the surrounding residential neighborhoods and may tailor standard buffers to include enhanced landscaping, fencing, so forth and so on. So in that sense, I feel there may be a lacking of information provided at this stage. Now that's not to say you couldn't condition this application further to provide greater buffer discretion to the Commission on the City Plan if you so chose, or you could ask for more detailed master plan concepts placed before you at this time.
Then specifically, the buffer as designed here could give that discretion to the CCP if we choose to. You said that.
Yeah, so right now, as proposed by them, they're providing a 50-foot, a minimum buffer shall be 50 feet. You could add language to that statement. One is, I mean, kind of the minimum implies that the buffer may be longer, larger. You know, it says a minimum buffer shall be 50 feet. You could essentially add language to that sentence that says a minimum buffer of 50 feet shall be provided, and the commission on the city plan may require larger buffers and/or the language used in the ordinance, enhanced landscaping, fences, walls, and earthen berms, where they deem applicable, needed, based on height of building, use, whatever it is you so choose.
If the CCP sought to do that on its own, without that additional language you just outlined, they're prohibited?
I'm not sure. I think, at the end of the day, a site plan approval is kind of, it complies. If it complies, they must approve. So if you interpret it as, you know, a 50-foot buffer is required and the applicant provides a 50-foot buffer, then you could say a black and white decision is, yes, it complies, and there's nothing else they can do. That being said, the site plan process is usually a bit more fluid or flexible than that. I guess from an interpretive standpoint, if that is your wish, I would want some language that implies that the city plan commission has greater discretion than just simply the 50 feet as stated.
Thank you. My last question. The topography of this whole site varies greatly. The heights of the land west that have been in question here, where you might see a taller structure, I've walked that property, I think it was back in 2011, all the way and back. If I recall, it drops off in some areas significantly. So any structure in those areas, if they could be sustained, if it's a larger structure, it wouldn't be an 80-foot building as it would be over on the east side. Part of it would be buried by or hidden by the sight lines of the land itself. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I also walked this site with the applicant and city staff back a few months ago before the actual application was submitted. It's kind of a pre-app review and so forth. And I agree with you. There's substantial grade changes on that site. I believe it's hard for me to just conceptualize specifically, but I believe if you look at the concept plan at this point in time and where the road is, what's south of the road, I believe, is much lower in elevation than what is kind of north of the road. So, yeah, and I think as you move to the west, stuff is lower in elevation than it is to the east. So, yeah, I think some, possibly not all, but some, if not many of the sites on the western side where the 80 feet as proposed right now would apply would be, you know, lower to a degree in elevation. Site by site, what exactly that number is, I don't know, but yeah, the height of the height of many buildings wouldn't look or feel as if they were 80 feet. They would be something less.
Thank you. Again, members who have any other questions at this time? Anyone have any statements they'd like to make at this time on the council? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I see a hand up. Okay. At this time,
she hasn't.
Please. Yeah, Mrs. Sawicki.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. My name is Jan Sawicki, and I live at 39 Andrea Lane in Norwich. I've been to each one of these hearings, and the more I hear, the more confused I become. I think it has been somewhat remiss for the public not to be shown some sort of 3D projection of what the possibility could be. I know you cannot, at this very time, project what buildings, what companies might come to build in this particular place. But certainly you could show the roads, you could show tentative parking lots, things like that, where they would be placed. I hear that the topography of the land, and this is New England, we don't have flat terrain. We could conceptualize a lot better if we could see some sort of 3D model. I think for us just to hear this, and it just amounts to gibberish to me about it could be this, it could be that. And I also wonder, if you build it, will they come? I mean, this is not Kevin Costner out in a baseball uniform, or was he the star of that movie? I don't know, I forget. But I'm trying to figure it all out, and I wonder if these people come, where are they going to come from? We hear over and over on the news that people in general, they don't want to work. They want a 4-day work week. They want to sit home for 3 days, and when they're home, they're working on their computers, and these buildings, great big ones for Norwich's type of town, are they going to remain half empty? Are you going to have, we talk about a 50-foot buffer? What? I'm thinking, I used to live in Basra. I had a 50-foot driveway. 50 feet is a driveway. What kind of buffer is that? Are you serious? 50 stinking feet, and I might have a 70-foot building at the end of my driveway? Hello, big deal. A few little plants, some planters, whatever. I just think the whole thing, it's like Swiss cheese. It's full of holes. I want to see more. I want to see something concrete. And if these people do come to these buildings, and if it does get built, and I hope it's not, where are they going to come from? Where are they going to live? What's the traffic going to be like? We've all experienced the traffic that has come into our area from the casinos. And I'm not going to knock them, although I'm not a gambler, and I can't imagine putting money in a machine and getting nothing, not even a stinking candy bar coming out. But, there's a lot to think about here. And we've had a number of our hearings and things, but it's still not complete enough to my liking, to my understanding. And like I said, 50 feet, a stinking driveway. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, Tucker, you spoke earlier. Is this new evidence?
No question.
Come on. No, I called Tucker, David. He had his hand up. You joined him, but...
Hello, I'm still Tucker Braddock, and I still live at 868 Scotland Road, Norwich, Connecticut. It's a simple question. With this particular design of a plan, are there any plans for helicopter zones there? Not, with the exception of emergency helicopters who may be coming in to pull people out of something, some mess. Are there any stipulations that there could not be a helipad there?
Mr. Poland.
And by the way, I live relatively close. That's not my problem.
No, understood.
I would encourage business at any time, any day, move into Norwich. For the past, since my political days, I I encourage business to move into Norwich. That's not my problem. I just would like to know that.
Thank you. Mr. Poland?
Zoning is a permissive regulation. That means uses have to be expressly permitted in order to be allowed. There is some discretion for determination of a similar and like use. This regulation, section 3.11, lays out 10 specific uses. The applicant's regulation ordinance request identifies the specific uses they're looking for in this zone. None of those uses, as far as I'm concerned, are helipad related. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss something from the applicant there. Therefore, without it being expressly permitted, it would not be permissible under this regulation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker. David, did you have a separate?
I was going to ask that question.
Oh, okay. Thank you, David. At this time, then, I'm going to close the public hearing. Did you have your hands? I'm sorry. The list I have for signed up considers the resolutions.
I wrote zoning next to my name, so it also said,
This is not a sign-up sheet for the public hearing. This is the resolutions that are appearing on the agenda later tonight, where people have the right to speak about those in our first meeting each month. No, I'm sorry. It does say resolutions in red. Please, come up.
Hi, my name's Edie Piscatelli. I'm from 44 Wales Road. I haven't taken a lot of time speaking here before, and I realize this is probably my last opportunity, so I made sure that I wrote it out so I could be clear. And I want to start by referencing a conversation that I had with Mr. Brown at the end of the last meeting. I asked him, you know, if you care so much about Norwich, as he's been up here touting that he really is for Norwich, why he couldn't focus on the existing industrial park rather than tearing down an open space to make a new one. And his reply to me was, it's cheaper to start from scratch. And I can't tell you how disappointing that remark was to me. That is like the epitome of Norwich. We have an industrial park that is not full, that has been stouted, people have been saying how it's full to capacity. It's not, we all know it's not. 13 or 14 buildings that are for lease or for sale that are empty. They were built in the 80s, they're dilapidating, they're ugly, they're unuseful, they're not producing for the city, and now we're gonna go destroy a whole nother parcel of land to make a new one, which in time will become the same thing as the old one. This is admittedly, probably true that it is cheaper to start from scratch, but something cheaper doesn't make it better, and just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. Norwich is literally littered with emptied and abandoned commercial properties, and today I verified with a couple of the real estate firms to keep the info current that there are at least 37 commercial properties available. 15 of them are over 10,000 square feet. 11 of them are over 75,000 square feet. 6 of them are over 30,000 square feet, not to mention property that's still undeveloped and available. Those are all buildings that should be revitalized, reused before you start tearing down our neighborhood, tearing down the wildlife, and everything else to build new things that we don't even have a plan for. What Norwich is short on is revitalized downtown, active, profitable marina that we apparently are about ready to spend another $1 million on, and another ballpark, a ball team for a ballpark. We got an empty ballpark up there and we lost the ball team. We're not gonna get one back. Hartford now has it. We're not gonna get that back. And you guys talk about, well, it's too expensive to tear stuff down. Well, what are you gonna do with it? You're just gonna leave it there, empty, useless, forever? If, as the other lady was saying, and I had said before, that whole if we build it, they will come mentality is harming the city, especially as it seems that very few people profit from it, especially the residents. I agree that Norwich needs jobs because he insinuated that I did not think that we should, provide jobs for people, and that's completely untrue. But right now, there are places, it's what the type of jobs that Norwich needs. We're long past our industrial revolution here. We are more of a bedroom community between Hartford and places like Groton and New London. We are well known for our, people come here and live because it's quiet. It offers peaceful places like out by where we live now. We pay high tax dollars for that. And now you're going to take that all away. What are you going to attract people to live in Norwich for? It's like there's nothing that you're bringing people here for. You're missing the concept of what would bring people to Norwich. The wind farms and the tech jobs and everything else, and I get, that he's been watching this, like most people who are aware of the, job opportunities and investments in the world and stuff. I have too. But I took the opportunity to keep current. And I investigated the Block Island wind farm. I investigated the New York, the upstate New York farms, the offshore New Jersey farms, and everything else. Well, let me tell you something. GE is one of the largest companies, and they are not going to lose that to us. They're not going to have another company come in and start competing with them. They're one of the largest people. They've already been doing this forever. They just increased their harbor plant in Boston. They just added all millions of dollars to that. They're not going to come and say, let's build in Norwich, truck it someplace else, ship it downriver, get it to New London, when they're already shipping right from the Boston Harbor, from Providence Harbor, from New York Harbor to these existing places. This is not a company, the chip technology, again, I listened to what he had to say, so I investigated. And all of the chip companies, NVIDIA, Microtel, all of them, they've even been on the news, and you can check with your local investment firms. They are not even investing right now. The government offered $52 billion for us to increase chip production here in the US. And that's already been pretty much taken by Indiana, Ohio, and if you read these things, you'll know that they're not coming here. It's not going to be coming to Norwich. There are a chance for us to have some businesses. We should do more for our local small businesses to keep them here, to keep them happy, to keep them living here and thriving here. And when you talk about, it's going to increase revenues from Norwich Public Utilities, it's not. Right now, I get a bill from Public Utilities every month, and I'm getting charged for purchase power because they can't afford to give me all of the power that I need. So if you add these companies to the roster and they need all this exponential amount of utilities, Norwich Public Utilities is going to have to get that from someplace else. That's going to increase our fees. We're going to become like an Eversource. It's not going to help us that way. And tax-wise, he was talking about the tax incentives that you're going to be giving these companies to come here. We're always giving companies tax incentives. And then as soon as the incentives are done, the businesses are gone. We literally have lost so many businesses. When I look at Agway that just got taken over, that's a good sign in Norwich. When I look at the Mr. Big building that just got taken over and redone, that's a good sign. Eliminating an entire neighborhood just to build another industrial park to save some money instead of improving the one we currently have, that's not good business. And as far as these buildings that are located within this 80-foot thing, I happen to live on the end with the 80-foot buildings. And let me tell you something, you can talk about topography or whatever else. I live on that street, I walk the woods, I kayak in the pond there and stuff, so I know the place. And I know that the map that I was given is certainly not to scale. And when I look at the places where he wants to stick these 80-foot buildings, there is no buffer. You can put up a little wall or whatever, but an 80-foot building, when there's no leaves on the trees, and there's less than 175 feet from me to the end of the road on Lawler Lane from the end of my property, I don't see where I'm going to be getting the protection from the noise, from the lights, from the traffic. And then he added a truck stop washing place. Why would we need a truck stop washing place out in the middle of Canterbury? The kind of things that are on here are just ludicrous. And it's like, I know that you're putting city utilities there, but a lot of us still have wells. We're not getting city utilities. So I need my water table to stay clean. I need it to stay fresh and safe. And a lot of that has not been taken into consideration. And I just really think you guys need to spend some more time thinking about this before you just rush through and approve something that, quite frankly, may not even take place for years. So if it may not take place for years, why the rush for the vote now? I can't help it if they purchased property already, took it upon themselves to do that, because they thought they could push this through right away and get moving with it. But you're my council. You're not his council. He doesn't live in Norwich. You're my council members. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a high taxpayer in Norwich. And I'm asking you because I did my research, and my property value is going to go down. I checked with my real estate agent. I said, what happens if I get an industrial park in my backyard? She goes, oh yeah, your property values go way down. So that's not fair to us. For those of us who have spent the last 30 years living on a property that we purchased, we've already had the zoning changed from when we got it. It was farmland practically, then it went to Norwich, then it went to historic Norwich Town. Now you want to change it to this big industrial park behind me. I'm very disappointed. I am so disappointed that you guys would even be considering something like this when right down the road, we have an industrial park that's literally just deteriorating. It's unsightly, it's unused. This is completely unnecessary. And I understand that it's already zoned for partial commercial, but my feeling on that would be, I don't think anything on this side before he changed it was going to be 80 feet tall. I don't think there was anything in there that said 500,000 square foot buildings were going to be allowed before this new list was created. So I would ask all of you to please take some more time to consider this. And when you say, he went out and walked the area, he needs to walk it again, because the elevations and stuff like that, they're not that drastic. They're not going to like hide an 80-foot or 60-foot building. We're not talking about anything that drastic. If you've ever driven down Lawler Lane, you know that it's just a straight thing where the cornfields are, takes a little dip where the waterway is that supposedly is not going to be interrupted by any of this, and then it just goes right back onto Scotland Road. We don't have any major elevation differences and stuff like that. So I would ask you guys to please inform yourselves more before you just let this pass through. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce, name and address, please.
Bruce McCaddy, 23 Wales Road. I just have a question. I know when I built my house, I had to show him my wetlands were, I had to have it measured off, I had to do everything. This is the map that we got from you guys. They have no wetlands on it. There is no pond. There's a huge pond here. They don't even have to come up with a blueprint to show us where wetlands are and what the roll-off of the property is. I mean, if they're building a huge division, you should have a whole study on this before you even approve it. But here's the map we got from them, and according to this, there's no wetlands back there, and there's probably a 25-acre pond there. So it's not that it's a little postage stamp that they're saying it is. Other than that,
thank you. I can only put on the record that the applicant gained the permit for inland wetlands approval, and they submitted all of that to them. So you may have a different picture or map there. There are multiple renditions of that, but the wetlands are identified. Or they wouldn't have a permit. They couldn't come here without all the local permits in place, number one. They, in fact, did that. I don't know if there's anyone in the applicant that wants to comment, but.
I'll just simply reiterate what you said, Mr. Mayor, that we had to actually go through the wetlands permitting process. And for anyone that's looking at any map out there, it's in green. The wetlands are on the map, and it's all of the green area on the map.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Donald Supranat, 43 Wales Road.
Please speak into the microphone,
Okay.
please. Thank you, sir.
Donald Supranat, 43 Wales Road. I live right opposite the beaver pond. Now, they stated that they're not going to affect only 200 foot of wetlands. But right where they want to build this circle is right where the beaver pond starts, and that's a wetland. There's two little ruts that a farmer might have used 50 years ago to go around the wetlands. So they're implying that there's a road there. There isn't. And that circle will be and affect the wetlands quite a bit. Now, between my house and that beaver pond, which the beavers need the bark and stuff off the trees to eat, they're going to be cutting, there's 3 buildings they show there. And those buildings are going to affect the wetlands quite a bit. It's not just going to be a runoff. There's also all the stuff from these trucks. Take a look at 395 and tell me that's clean down that road. What do you think this new road's going to look like with tractor trailers coming down it and the traffic? That's going to affect the wetlands quite a bit, not just a runoff from rain. So it's an awful lot to the ecology before you even start thinking about doing something like this. I think it's going to affect the people, like one of the ladies said, the lights, the traffic from these tractor trailers. People are trying to put their kids to bed at probably 9, 10 o'clock, a tractor trailer's coming in and lights. It's just too much for that area. You're affecting the people there too much. I'm really opposed to this thing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for your patience, and many of you have come to each of the hearings as we continued it. I appreciate your effort here. At this time, I'm going to close the public hearing.
City Manager's report.
Say it again? Wait, 1 second, John. Excuse me. 1 second. We're doing something in the election?
It's on the agenda.
Okay. I'm sorry. Second reading and possible action on the above ordinance previously presented.
Thank you. At this time, for purposes of bringing this to the floor for discussion, I would ask for a motion to bring it forward, again, for discussion purposes. Is there such a motion at this time? Alderman Grant, Neuendorf, is there a second? Alderwoman Gould? Okay, for purposes, the motion is before us. Open to comment, concerns, statements from members. The floor is yours. Alderman Grant Neuendorf.
So as we talk about this, I kind of am disappointed in the idea that we're more concerned about things like animals and the surrounding areas. And it just, I don't know, it just makes me want to shake my head, because when I think about Norwich, we see a lot going on in some of the other areas, and not to compare apples and oranges, but we're talking about light pollution, we're talking about some of these things. When I'm putting my children to sleep at night, I'm thinking, 20 yards away from my house, 20 feet away from my house, there's a shooting going on. That's what I'm concerned about. I think that what this would do is it would bring people to Norwich, hardworking people, people who would accumulate and want to come here and raise families and contribute to Norwich. I mean, we just put something forth where we're going to build 4 new schools. How are we going to be able to do this without money in our tax base growing to do this? So I just think that we should consider looking into this a little bit more, but I think that moving forward, I think that we need to consider what's best for all the people in Norwich and do what's going to help the city grow in a positive way. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Is there further discussion? For purposes of discussion, we were asked to consider an amendment to this ordinance. That is not before us at this time. What is it the pleasure of the council to introduce that language? Then the vote that would take place at this time is on the master plan as presented, without those additional defining standards, which I believe were intended to address concerns of the people who particularly live in that area. For example, that would leave set-asides at 20 feet in residential versus 50, as which was recommended. Alderwoman Gould.
Going to make a motion to amend it so we include these new provisions that have been presented by Attorney Block.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second is Alderman Grant Neuendorf. Is there discussion on the amendment that was presented? Do people have continued questions about that language? The applicant is here. Again, everything should be on the record if you have other questions. Okay. The motion before us is to accept the amendment as presented. A roll call.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
The motion is amended, is passed 7-0 to accept the amendments and the language as presented tonight. Corporate Counsel.
Mayor, because we are using the ordinance process, since it's been amended, it should go at least to the next meeting before you vote on it, because it has to be re-advertised as amended. So right now, you've amended the ordinance. If you're going to vote, you're voting on the amended ordinance, so it has to be re-advertised to the next meeting or later, as the council prefers, in order to comply with the requirements of our charter. My understanding is that there's still adequate time under the general timeframes that within, if you hold the vote the next meeting, you'll meet that timeframe,
That you're referencing the 65 days?
65 days.
Thank you. Yes, Alderman Wilson.
Now, when you talk about re-advertising the amended ordinance, does this include notifying those abutters to this proposed development, or is that just posting that we've?
The public hearing is closed. This is just simply a vote on the ordinance as it's been amended tonight. Had you not amended it, you could have voted on the existing ordinance tonight, up or down. Since you've amended it, the charter provides that you can't vote on it tonight. You have to go forward. Whether that applies in the context of your acting as a zoning commission is really a question that has been answered. But since you have additional time without approaching the 65 days, I think you should postpone any vote on the amended thing to allow it to be reposted by the city clerk as required by the charter.
I mean, I get that part. I think my only concern is, there have been so many people that have come out to voice their concerns, their opinions on this large matter, and making sure there's some way, somehow, where we can be much more transparent and then getting the information about the amendment, and that way that they know what will be voted on next meeting.
That'll be up to the council the next meeting to explain what the council is doing, pro or con, and what concerns there were that were answered. But the public hearing is over, so it can't be reopened in that sense.
Correct. Thank you.
Just for further clarity, the advertisement would apply in the newspapers as all ordinances are published. And that in itself is a notice to all parties. The notice to abutters was prior to the public hearing process beginning and all of that. I don't think by state law it applies in this case. I'm not an attorney, but all the experience I've had, that's at the beginning of the process. We're nearing the completion of this process, whatever those results will be. But as the corporate counsel said, we have to advertise what that change is, what those changes are actually. And that does, in fact, provide further notice for the transparency that you call for.
Well, there's argument whether you have to advertise it or not, but the charter calls for it, and since you use the charter process as the zoning commission, in adopting it. I think you're better off to do it because you have the time to do that.
Thank you. Then I would ask for a motion to postpone any final action on this ordinance as amended until the next council meeting.
So moved.
Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderman Grant Neuendorf. Is there discussion on the act to postpone until the next council meeting 2 weeks from
January 17th.
Monday? It's January 17th, not 2 weeks. Tuesday. It is Tuesday, another holiday, excuse me.
So it'll be the 18th.
It is, yes,
It's the 17th.
17th.
Thank you.
16th is the Monday, the holiday. Is everyone clear on that? Motion postponed until 17th. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
A motion to postpone final action on the ordinance as amended till the 17th of January is adopted 7-0.
City Manager's report.
Thank you. Should I wait? Want me to wait while people are exiting?
Yeah, if you'd like opportunity, yes.
Oh, there it is. Well, he wasn't sure if he was going to read it or not because he hasn't read the last two and to postpone it till next
You're
meeting.
supposed to be reading during a public hearing. You don't want someone left to say,
After, he gives it to me after the meeting is over.
okay. I just felt very awkward.
Instead of adding it to suspension, I left it on there.
Yeah. Oh,
Get your point.
How much homework can you do?
Just now, just so you can circulate out.
St. Peter's.
Giving it a few minutes, but if they linger, then
I know.
Mayor, I guess I'm ready to start then. Okay. This is the city manager's report for January 3rd, 2023. Meetings attended were Southeastern Council of Governments meeting, Connecticut Interlocal Risk Management Agency, Kerma Board of Directors meeting, bond signing and emergency preparation for the storm event on December 22nd. Public Works assisted with the cleanup from the storm event that caused minor flooding at Brown Park and near the Intermodal Transportation Center. Due to high tides, the river overflowed its banks in certain areas with minimal damage to city property. During the month of January, taxpayers can present their current real estate, personal property, or motor vehicle supplemental tax bills at the Norwich branches of M&T Bank, formerly People's, where payments can be processed via check or cash. Delinquent taxes will not be accepted at bank locations and must be paid at the City Hall tax office located at 100 Broadway. Taxpayers do not need to be an M&T bank customer to make their payments at the branch location. The partnership provides greater access and convenience to taxpayers. Payments can be made online at norwich.org/taxes through the mail and in person. Norwich Youth and Family and Recreation Services Winter 2023 registration is still open with programs starting January 7th. Programs can be viewed at norwich.org, norwichconnecticut.org. The December vacation camp averaged 13 to 16 children per day, existing 15 families over the holiday break. Hannah Auburn from Youth, Family, and Recreation Department, as the Drug Prevention Coordinator, is working with my assistant, Jackie Barbarossa, to have a Narcan training session for city employees. Hannah, due to her participation in the opioid task force, has put together some opioid safety bags to be passed out to city departments in the next 2 weeks. These bags contain opiate use prevention materials, fentanyl test strips, Narcan, a QR code to the virtual Narcan training, and more. Once she meets with department heads to determine the interest, in-person trainings will be scheduled. Thank you to those who sponsored or donated to the Norwich Human Services Adopt a Family program. Norwich Human Services were able to provide gifts to 124 Norwich families, which included 308 children. And finally, congratulations to Leon Bernowski on his retirement. Leon started in the city's MIS department in January of 1999 and has led the city through numerous technology upgrades. We certainly thank him for his service. And that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, John. Are there questions, concerns of the city manager? Alderman Singh.
Thank you. Yeah, I also want to just applaud the efforts of Hannah Auburn, because I think opioid crisis is real, and we are one of the most affected community. So Narcan training is actually very good thing that the city is doing. So that's great. Also, in your last report, which was not read, I just don't want it to get missed, that city website is now accessible in, I think, 100 languages.
Yes.
And that is a very big achievement for the city itself, because we do have very diverse community living here. A lot of nationalities are living here. Our Norwich Public School have recognized almost 32 languages which are spoken in our schools. So I think that's a very big achievement for our city. So I just want to applaud that effort. And if you want to recognize some of those people who are working on this project, so that'll be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there further questions concerning the city manager at this time? Seeing none. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Citizen comment on resolutions.
I declare citizen comment on the resolutions on the agenda this evening to be open. At this time, I do have a sign-up sheet. Linda Fedora.
Linda Theodoro, 37 Taftville-Ockham Road, Norwich, Connecticut. I am commenting on two resolutions. First, I support resolution number 5. Norwich is a city. Cities attract both residents and visitors through arts and culture. Bringing people to the city supports small businesses and restaurants. It is absolutely necessary to fund arts and culture in order for Norwich to thrive. I also support resolution number 7. As someone who has traveled the world, I am so proud to live in a diverse city that includes residents from so many different countries. We need to show them that we appreciate the fact that they chose to leave their own countries to live in Norwich. Children tend to do better in school if they feel that they belong. This cultural calendar will help the children of our immigrant population feel that they are seen and are not outsiders. Our children are our future, and we must do everything we can to support them. Thank you.
Thank you. Zato Commendario.
Thank you. Zato Kadamba, 54 Sherwood Lane. I rise in support of resolution number 5 and 7. Knowing from each other, culture will increase tolerance, collaborations among the citizens of the Rose City. When we all feel that we belong to the whole group and that we are considered in all the town's business, everyone becomes more productive. And then art and other activities that enrich our children is a very good addition, and I would ask the council to support that, and especially in the cultural event is very meaningful. I moved from Plainfield to here because I feel more comfortable here with the diversity of the town of Norwich, and I commend the resolution to be supported. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Wendy Berry.
I'm Wendy Berry. I'm the Executive Director of the Cultural Coalition at 66 Franklin Street. I just figured I'd speak on behalf of the number 5 resolution in terms of additional rescue plan funds for arts and culture. We are in the midst of administering the previous funding for it and have had some great impact and some great stories. I think a few people are here to share with that, but I'm also here to answer questions on the proposal number 5. So I'll let the other people speak and come back.
Thank you. Heather Pig.
Hi, Heather Pegg, 3 Crossway Street, also business owner at 48 Franklin Street, Midnight Ether. I'm actually one of the grant winners for the Arts and Cultural Grant. I won the full grant. My business, I do a lot of design work. I have worked with NCDC in the past for that, and this grant has been such a help to my business so that I'm able to focus more on not worrying about the finances side of business for at least a good while. I can go back into my craft and I can work with, others in the business. I can work with other businesses. And then, of course, I work a lot with students at the local high school NFA. I give them a space to work creatively. And had I not gotten my grant, I wouldn't be able to do that. I'd be kind of scrambling about trying to get funds and trying to keep my business afloat. So keeping the second round would be super beneficial for this future vision that we are looking to have Norwich go in, to be this tourist destination, to be this place that brings in small businesses. So I hope you guys, move forward with it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on the general citizen comment? That completes those who signed. It's Kevin.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Saitani, and I currently reside over at 27 Brook Street here in Norwich, Connecticut. I stand before you this evening to encourage this legislative body to support and adopt resolution number 7 dealing with cultural calendar for the city of Norwich. The Norwich Public School has already created and adopted such a calendar thanks to the members of the Board of Education. And I would like to note that the Connecticut Department of Education has been inspired by what we have done in Norwich Public School and appreciates that. And as a board member, I appreciate and praise the achievement. The purpose of this calendar is to let the public know and to be aware of the many different cultural holidays and celebrations that exist in the world. By having such a calendar citywide, it would let the people of Norwich and the people beyond our city border know that we as a collective community is serious about diversity and that we care deeply for it and we respect it. The racism, discrimination, and the hatred that we see in the world today should be seen in the 21st century as a primitive behavior and attitude. We are not born to express such negative traits. They are only taught or shown. So with the implementation of the cultural calendar, I firmly believe that this will create an educational and empathy tool that we need as a key to lift away these vicious curses. Remember, diversity is our greatest strength. Many of our technologies, innovations, sciences, engineers, discoveries, foods, and endless creativities are due to our country being diverse. Whether born in the United States or not, we should have no tolerance or time for racism, discrimination, and hatred. And as the Rose City we are, let us flourish and become part of a great American story. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yes, please, young lady in back.
14. Jennifer Wigan-Watkinson.
Teresa Wigan-Watkinson.
We're representing the Norwich Bully Busters. We were a grant recipient this year of the grant, and we had the opportunity to work in the middle schools teaching an arts and culture program. The children picked cultures that they wanted to know about and learn about, and ones that they are, to share with other people what their culture was. And it was unbelievable. We had kids begging to get into the program. So it's really an important issue because the kids were very into sharing about their cultures and respecting cultures. We even touched on Russia and everything that was going on over there. And there were kids that we found out that were in the program that come from a Russian background. And they were really excited to share about their families' foods and art and all of that stuff. So it was extremely beneficial.
One of the biggest things we got from our children's testimonials at the end of our program from this grant recipient that we got was that they wish that we could do it more, was that they wish that we could keep going and keep learning about these different cultures and keep discussing the different arts and traditions and lifestyles and things like that. And a lot of the kids, because Norwich is such a very diverse community, and we have so many children with many different backgrounds, Cape Verdean is one of the largest cultures that we have here in Norwich, and a lot of the kids were very excited to learn more about their Cape Verdean backgrounds. Through our program, we were able to run through this grant, and so we just ask that you strongly consider renewing it and letting it happen again so that it's a big thing for children, but it can also be a big thing for just the community in general, for adults to learn and branch out as well through this grant to better the community for understanding. And as the Norwich Bully Busters are saying, is kindness is magical, and through learning about the different cultures, especially teaching it in the schools for the children, that being understanding and supporting diversity can help lead to having more connection and understanding of each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, please.
Greetings, Council. Andrew Pigg, 3 Crossway Street. I too am a grant recipient of last year, and I currently own Norwich Camera Company downtown in Norwich Franklin, greater part of Foundry and NCDC. The grant money that we received really was more we could have done without, honestly. Our business thrives. We deal in the lost art of film. 35 millimeter film, 110 cameras, medium format, we still do it. You name film cameras, we do it. Many thought that art was dead and gone. Because of the services that we offer, it's a very niche community. But what that has, because of that, we're one of the only processors of film in the state and on the East Coast. And we're also one of the only film camera repair technicians here in the state. Nobody else repairs film cameras anymore. Doesn't happen. Because of that has opened up for people from outside the actual city to come into Norwich and to view Norwich and see that it's really not as bad as what people think it is. With the grant money, we've been able to supplement a lot of our costs and also to offer programs for the community to teach them about film, to do film developing workshops, and it's really a community outreach program that we have. Also, it has allowed us to open up some more spaces and to hire on additional photographers for our ongoing veteran outreach program that we have. So we offer services that are free to all veterans. If they need headshots, portrait shots for their portfolio updates, for job applications, anything of the like, they can come in and get that service absolutely free on the first Saturday of every month. So that grant money has been fundamental in allowing that program to continue on what it is going on. So I highly encourage everyone to continue on with the program and continue on with grant money. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Scott.
Good afternoon or evening.
Good evening.
and I rise to speak on Resolution 5 and number 7. I have for many years been in the city and have been very, very supportive of the arts, and that they are really essential with regard to our youth. And I'm asking that they be supported, that these two resolutions, 5 and 7, be given a lot of support with regard to the monies that are being given. It's shown for years that how the arts are so important, and especially very important for the children. And I have been working over the years with the NAACP and other groups. So I'm here to ask that you give more support for the program. And I think it'll make a big difference and in the community, and continue this community to be good. I am very supported, and I've done it for a long, long time, working with the arts, and I know. And when I think of the Norwich Arts Council, another place where it made a difference in the city over the years, the NAACP, dealing with the arts, have made big decisions in this community. And I think now, with the amount of money that is available to the community, to the city, that money, much of it, should be devoted to the arts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Scott. Please.
Good evening. I'm Carrie Dyer. I'm the CEO at Reliance Health at 40 Broadway in Norwich. I'm here to speak in support of resolution number 5, also about the ARPA grant dollars. Our agency hopes to be a grant recipient. We have been part of the Norwich downtown since 1976. I've worked downtown for the last 29 years. I've seen the fits and starts. I've been part of Norwich Creates. I'm part of the coalition. I'm part of First Fridays. I see the desire that this town has to be beautiful, to be revitalized, be reinvigorated, and these dollars give us the bolster to actually make those dreams happen. To see the actual art going up, to see people want to come to this town, to listen to the conversation prior to this of people having the desire to come to this city and to contribute to this city is really meaningful. We've talked about it for so long, and to see dollars actually be supportive of that would be tremendous. So while we don't normally seem as a mental health provider to be your typical art recipient, we hope to contribute again in that way. We have 2 large footprints downtown. We want to make part of that really beautiful and to help people see that this is not a scary place, that we have over 250 employees that work out of these downtown offices, and we have a lot to contribute, and I think that supporting these dollars makes a lot of sense for the city of Norwich. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further, please, Ms. Hayes.
Good evening, Sheila Hayes, 382 Laurel Hill Avenue. I rise to support, asking you to support resolutions number 5 and 7. As you've heard tonight, I'm not going to repeat what everybody said. You heard from artists, you heard from businesses, you heard from community people, you heard from nonprofits. Art is a economic driver for this city. It is also going to increase or has increased tourism. I've been involved with providing as a volunteer. We've seen the transformation of the Greenville section of the city of Norwich, going all the way back to at least 2015 when I got involved with painting fire hydrants. Then we had a young lady, Faith, she painted a mural on the along the 8th Street Bridge. Those projects brought that community together during some very difficult times in the city. And that's what the arts, culture, and tourism will do. When we keep talking about how does Norwich get over the hump that it's in, is when you bring a quality of life aspect to this city. And I'm asking you once again to continue to support the arts, culture, and tourism. And at one time, it used to be a line item in the budget, and it was taken out. It's time for the city to start putting some money and investing in that area for the residents, for the visitors, for the business people. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, miss. Again, please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, good evening, or Happy New Year's. Tamia Capehart, 90 North Street.
Cynthia Jean Mary, 233 Prospect.
Norwich Greenville Committee. The banner says, "Where there is liberty, there is homeland." Norwich is my homeland now because this allows a place I can give my kids liberty. Liberties to express and grow in a safe environment. This week, my son and Maximus sat around the kitchen table and laid out their vision for Norwich youth. As they planned out their year discussing different things young Black men would be interested in, like digital graphics, music, photography, writing, acting, and gaming tournaments, I can only stand back in awe. In that moment, I knew I had a job to do. I have to plant more seeds, keep watering our garden so it can blossom. I say yes to resolution number 5 because we will be applying for these funds to go to the Greenville Neighborhood Youth Projects. I say yes to resolution 7 because I would like to see more multicultural awareness in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like Ms. Tamir Capehart said, this weekend we had the opportunity to see our kids sit around a table, a kitchen table, and just make plans for 2023. How can they involve other youth like themselves? What are other youth, young Black men, their age, thinking about right now? What are the things that they want to get involved in? It's been difficult these past couple years with COVID and the kids being in the house, not being able to go to school, not being able to use our public spaces outside. So having this opportunity, like Ms. Capehart said, it was an awesome opportunity, and it left us with a drive, saying that we have to do something, we have to be present in our community so that these kids have a future. So from the Greenville Neighborhood Committee, we say yes to resolution number 5 and yes to resolution number 7. Thank you for your guys' time, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. The further discussion? General citizen comment on resolutions. Please.
Hi, thank you. My name is Lisa Bono, and I'm representing Chestnut Street Playhouse, which is right around the corner at 24 Chestnut Street. We were a recipient of a Round 1 grant that allowed us to present a program in partnership with the Hispanic Alliance of Southeastern Connecticut, which was a program for teens presenting theater both in Spanish and in English, which was great for the students and great for our audience. Everybody was super energized to see a jam-packed, sold-out opening night where everybody was really enthusiastic to see the work that was not only presented in English. We hired a teacher who translated scenes that were not written originally in the script into Spanish for the audience, as well as an original scene written by one of our teachers. So it was incredibly exciting. One of the things we had talked about as a board is that you have to build a bridge before people can cross it. And part of that is allowing opportunity, creating new programs, and eliminating barriers. And one of the things that we absolutely could not have done without the support of this grant is eliminate some of those barriers by providing transportation for students from 3 different towns to come together. And Sam Lady mentioned planting seeds so that they can grow. That is our greatest hope, is that this will continue to be a part of our community, a part of our organization. We're already excited and talking about continuing for next summer, whether we receive funding or not, but it was very moving and meaningful to be a part of, to see these students find a spark and a joy and another artistic home right here in our beautiful community. So thank you. Thank you very much. And yeah, Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the council on the resolutions at this time? Yep, please.
Good evening. Okay. Good evening, Linda Fouché, 65 Williams Street. I had the good fortune of being married to my former spousal unit in Submarines. We purchased our first house in Norwich, and this was 1975 when the Rose Arts Festival was in full bloom. We got stationed somewhere else. When we came back to Connecticut, I wanted to move back to Norwich. So I fully support 5 and 7, and I would greatly urge you to do the same. Because if Miss Lottie B. Scott is for it, who can be against it?
Thank you. Is there further comment on citizen comment on resolutions on the agenda this evening? Is there further discussion or comment? Is there further discussion or comment? Seeing none, I declare a citizen comment to be closed. Thank you. At this time, I would ask for a 5-minute recess.
So moved.
Second. Grant, okay. Any objection? No. Okay, thank you. 5 minutes. Council will stand at ease. Thank you, Betsy. The council come back to order from recess.
New business resolutions. Number 1, relative to holding a special election on Wednesday, February 1st, 2023, regarding an ordinance amending Section 8-17 of the Norwich Code of Ordinances.
Thank you. Need a motion to put this on the floor, please. Alderwoman Berto, second. Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? Alderman Wilson.
Just a small question. So at the bottom on the ballot, it's going to read for approval of an ordinance amending Section 8-17 of the Norwich Code of Ordinances. Yes or no? That's what
Correct.
it's-
No,
okay.
no.
What?
That is not the question.
Oh, then please.
Thank you.
Sorry. The question will be, shall an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Section 8.7 of the Norwich Code of Ordinances?
The question is in the body here.
Okay.
The action is required here, voting yes or no at the bottom.
Okay. That's perfect. Thank you
Is
for
that clear?
clarification.
I hope.
Yep. I just wanted to make sure, because there were the two different pieces, which was the actual ballot language. So that clarifies it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further question or comment? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you. The resolution adopted, 7-0 vote.
Number 2, relative to approval of the UPS EU-911 dispatchers collective bargaining unit agreement and related budget changes to fiscal year 2022-23.
Thank you. Corporation Counsel has asked, since this is a collective bargaining matter, would the council prefer to discuss this? Do you have any questions or concerns? No? Mike, bring the microphone closer.
I had prepared at request a motion to go into executive session before there was action on this. If it doesn't need to be, it doesn't need to be, but otherwise, I think you should postpone acting on this until after the executive session.
Fair enough.
With the permission of council, we'll take it out of order as he requested. Thank you.
Number 3, relative to listing property with Signature Properties of New England at 50 Peck Street.
Motion, please, bring this to the floor. Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. The resolution is adopted.
Number 4, relative to listing property with Signature Properties of New England at 36 Huntington Avenue.
A motion, please, bring it to the floor. Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you. The resolution is adopted 7-0.
Number 5, relative to $500,000 be appropriated from the American Rescue Plan funds to the Southeastern Connecticut Cultural Coalition.
A motion, please, bring it to the floor. Alderman Wilson, second. Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion? Alderwoman Gould.
Ms. Bird, would you mind coming to the podium, please? Good evening. Thank you for being here. I realize the hour is late,
That's okay, thank you.
but I have some questions that I'd like to ask, please.
Sure.
In March of 2022, the Cultural Coalition received $100,000 for their first round of grants.
Say that we gave out.
Distributed.
Okay. You received the money to distribute,
Yes.
Okay, so what did you spend $100,000 on?
Yep, so just to be clear on where we are in terms of the financials right now, in terms of what we have expended, we still have quite a bit. So we expended $100,000 in the grants, many of which you heard from some of the grantees tonight. Those were grants that were available up to $10,000 each. We gave out $98,000 in grants from that round. We are currently in a round right now where we have received the next kind of fund installment of $175,000. That current grant round, which is for larger grants of up to $30,000, and the second round of the smaller grants that are due actually in February. And so we haven't made decisions on those. Those are still being in process. So we haven't expended the first round of money.
So you have not expended the first round money of $100,000, or you haven't expended
the 500. The 500.
Right, you haven't expended all the money.
Right.
So you've expended how much of that money have you expended to date?
So to date, we have expended $146,000 and $802.
Okay. So
with 175 that's now waiting for disbursement through the next round of granting. That's been allocated to this next round.
right, and then you'll have $161,000 still left, sort of in the bank.
Right, with ideas of knowing where it's going to go based on the proposal that we gave you way back when.
Right, but you don't know where you're going to spend the next $175,000.
No, we do. We have the entire full $500,000 from the first round has been allocated. We gave it to you in a plan and proposal. We've been following that plan from the beginning.
Okay, so can you tell us?
Yeah. I don't know if I have copies of the first plan with me, but I have a copy myself that you can pass. But that was submitted, and you all did receive copies of that when we actually presented for that. So the 500,000. So it was $300,000 total for grants and re-granting. So that'll be going straight out the door in terms of the individual grants. Those are the 3 rounds or the first round that we did for $100,000. This is for $175,000, and then we have $25,000 that we're kind of allocating as kind of part of that grant if there's more supplemental grants. So in this first round that we did, we offered additional $1,000 per grantee for professional development for 1 year. 90% of them took us up on that one, so that gave us we used an extra $9,000 on that. So we will use the full $300,000 once this next round is finished of $100,000 the first and $175,000 with the $25,000 to kind of use it to supplement in terms of mini grants. So that'll be all expended. The other $100,000 was for arts and cultural projects and programs. We've put that in the beginning of carving out money for public art through the public art committee that we've formed, and we've talked about doing the roundabout. So that's been allocated. We've kind of allocated it. What we decided, I think we said $25,000 was an amount that we all agreed would be the maximum amount for that, and then other public art projects in the city. There's $75,000 that was allocated for the Arts and Culture Coordinator. That position is held by Sarbani Hazra. To date, and she's been with us for a little over a year now, we have not expended that budget. Budget-wise, we're way under budget on that. So I think we've expended $26,000 so far on her time for over a year's worth of her efforts in all of the work that she's been doing. And then our fee is $25,000. So the full $500,000, that is the breakdown of it is $300,000 for grants, $100,000 for arts and cultural projects, $75,000 for the position, which will be under budget, which means we can put more money towards grants or projects, and then the $25,000 for our organization, equaling $500,000.
So where did the $300,000 go? To what groups?
Well, so we have only spent the $100,000 at this point.
So
you've heard that.
What groups have they gone to? And what is the matrix that says, okay, this program was a success, this didn't work, this hasn't happened? I'm trying to get a gauge on if you've only spent $100,000.
Yeah. So you've heard from quite a few of the grant recipients tonight in terms of the impact part. They had their money. The money was expended for the year of 2022, meaning the grant time frame was 2022. Their grant reports are due in the next, they'll be going out, and then they have until, I think, June to give us the grant report. So we'll have that time to capture all the data. At this point, though, I think we presented at my last presentation, I believe we presented all of the information about where the dollars went, how many children received, how many programs, how many, everything. I believe we did provide all of the information. And if not, I think I've sent everybody the summary of activities that has every single month's activities of every dollar that has been expended so far and all of the activities we've done to supplement that. I'm happy to give you a copy of this.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not
It's
trying
also
to,
available online.
okay. I'm just trying to see where we've spent the money, because you're back here looking at another $500,000. And I want to make sure that we're using this gift
Absolutely.
to the best possibility that we
Sure.
can.
So one of the, I will add, so our, the first round we gave was for 12 applications that were funded. We totaled a total grant award of $98,000, 25% artists, 58% nonprofits, 17% for-profit. 17% of the total applicants were BIPOC. 67% received support through our Funding Booster program and had not been grant applicants before, so they were first-timers. 25% of the grants went to youth-engaged use of funds, and a majority of the funds for that first round was for programs, projects, and events. We had originally talked about closing out this second round for the $175,000 at December 31st. We actually require collaboration because these are $30,000 grants, up to $30,000. We require collaboration. And when we did a workshop with all of the Norwich community members who were interested in the grant, and we told them they had to collaborate, actually list an authentic collaboration, what they came back to us and expressed was that wasn't enough time to have authentic collaboration. Can we extend the deadline until February? So we actually pushed this out further based on their needs, which is what we're trying to do. So the responsiveness of the ARPA dollars, really, I can just say, they are still recovering from the pandemic. They are still having performances that have to be canceled because COVID hits the actors on stage and things are still happening. So I just want to make it clear that while the money seems to be going out slowly, we're addressing the needs as we're able to address them, but also this is ongoing, and you're hearing hopefully the impact of this is actually pretty quick to go out in terms of these grants, and they just had to finish they had to expend all of their dollars for the first round by December 31st. That was just the deadline right now. So, I think you're asking for a lot of information that we just, you're hearing it in stories, but we haven't gotten the reports yet because they just had to finish expending their dollars just a few days ago.
Okay, and how many of these programs are going on? Are all of these programs going on in Norwich?
Yes, they have to be in Norwich. They have to be based. The organizations have to be based in Norwich. And so now all of the first round of grantees have finished their work. They had a deadline of December 31st to complete their projects, their programs, their work, and expend those dollars.
And when do you have to expend the $175 that you just got? When does that have to be expended by?
I don't think we have a deadline on when we have to expend it by. The deadline for ARPA funding goes quite long, but our deadline that we're using is the grant, I believe, is due, the application is due February 28th. We will make decisions in March, and they will have until the end of 2023 to expend those funds.
Okay, and so that leaves you still with like $161,000.
Yep, so we've allocated some for public art. We've also deferred to the Public Art Committee to help us make decisions around where the public art money should go and how much that should be. So whether or not it should be a big piece, some sort of major piece of public art in the roundabout, or maybe kind of multiple smaller things. So we're looking for advice and guidance from the Norwich Public Art Committee and also city leadership and everybody else about other projects we should be doing. We've also been in partnership with Norwich, with NCDC. We did a $25,000 mini grant to support their grantees, and then we're also looking for this, should you renew and give additional funding, half of that money is allocated for us to work with NCDC on their projects and have arts kind of intersect. And then we talked about the other more grants, professional development, public art. It's also all in the proposal that I thought that you all had the proposal that we submitted all of this. But if you don't, I have copies of that.
I just like to, see what works, what doesn't work. And since a lot of this stuff is continuing, it's been started, halted, or hasn't even started yet. I'm hesitant to allocate more money at this time when we don't know what does or doesn't work or
Well, I think
how
you've
it
heard-
benefits.
I think you've heard
No,
from
I'm
them
sa-
about
I'm not
how well
saying
it is
that-
working.
that This has worked, but these people are a small portion of $500,000.
I think they're representative of exactly what you would see times 5. I think that is exactly what you're going to see, is you're going to see small, these are $10,000 grants. This is not a huge amount of money. These are impactful, really, neighborhood, local focus that are affecting children. So I don't think you're going to, you're going to hear more of these kinds of stories about impact. Part of the additional funding, and even part of the first round of funding, is we've definitely allocated money for marketing and promotion to help amp up for 2023 in terms of those big grants, so that we can help market and promote anything that is a big grantee, some big program or project. They're going to need money for marketing, for the tourism piece of it. But I genuinely think that just increasing the funding, you're going to be hearing a lot more of these really wonderful stories about how these are changing businesses, allowing them to keep doing their work, extend their programs, do community outreach, work with children that they haven't been able to work, open the doors, reduce barriers, reduce costs, increase transportation. You're going to be hearing more about that. I don't expect, that's what we've seen year after year after year, but the pandemic, the impact of the pandemic was that they just have not had a chance to kind of get their head up and deal with things like capital improvements, additional contractors, programs that they've wanted to do, marketing and promotion. So this is really, it's already been impactful. The $500,000 is already making a difference. We know it's going to make a huge difference as it keeps on being expended. We're not in a rush to get it all out the door, because we know that it needs to be addressing the issues as they keep on arising. And these businesses are all, we're in touch with everybody along the way. And we asked them up front, do you need this money in a quick grant kind of style? And they all said no. They needed time to assess where the best use of that money would be for long-term stability purposes and recovery purposes.
And the program that the Norwich Bully Busters did, the arts and culture program, that was in Norwich Public Schools? Was that in?
Yes, I believe it was in the Norwich Public Schools, yes.
Was that at the elementary level or the middle school level?
I'm pretty sure that was at the middle school level.
It was at both middle schools.
Okay.
And
I'm sorry, I don't have copies of the grant applications with me right now.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there other questions? Yeah, Alderwoman Berto.
I just wanted to say that I will be supporting, fully funding the Cultural Coalition for their $500,000. I believe that, supporting culture and supporting the arts does help create jobs in our city. And not only would it help create jobs, but it'll help boost tourism as well. And also, Norwich, we say a lot about how we support diversity, how Norwich is diversity. Well, if that's the case, we need to act on it and fully support diversity. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further comment, questions? President Pro Tem, please.
I have a question.
Sure.
How will the selection process be different than it was in the first 2 rounds that you just described, if we vote tonight to allocate this money to?
Do you mean for the grant specifically, for the
Yes.
sub-granting?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so in the first round, we used an internal team that we had of 5 people, 3 particular people, myself, our assistant director, Sarbani, who was on the outside, but internally, we went through an internal review process with a rubric. The grantee applicants are aware of the rubric and the scoring of what scores well and not, and then the reviewers go through and actually decide that, kind of the rubric scores. For this larger grant award, we will be bringing in more community people. Not a huge group, because it gets to be a little bit too overwhelming to have more than 5 or 6 people, but bringing in community members to help serve on that panel to make those decisions.
Is there going to be any change to the rubric that might broaden the
Yes.
applicant pool, so to
Yes.
speak?
Yes, so there's 2 grants that are currently accepting applications at this time. One is a second round of the first round of grants, which are the smaller $10,000 grants that can be for one organization or one business or one artist. And it's pretty wide use in terms of addressing the impact of COVID. Capital improvements, purchases, equipment, programming, marketing, promotion. It's pretty much whatever they feel is the best and highest use of that money. That's a portion, that's one grant that's open right now. The other grant that's open is called the Impact Grant, and that's the one where they have to collaborate with 3 organizations or a combination of organizations, nonprofit, for-profit, or artists. Those have a different rubric. And it has a very clear definition of what we don't define what high impact is, but we ask the applicant to tell us why and how it will be high impact. And high impact means it could be high economic impact, high social impact, high community impact, but we allow them to tell us what they think will be the impact of it and why it is considered high, and then how the collaboration actually came to be. And then the rubric is based on, we want to see bigger. We want to see more impact in terms of how it is going to, a $10,000 grant often cannot be seen to the outside public in terms of a major event. It can be equipment purchases. But on those larger grants, which I said we'll be able to give about 6, those ones we are really looking at the rubric to be expanded around what kind of impact, how impact, and to look for the ones that have a little bit of everything, economic, societal, community, kind of a little bit of everything.
So we just heard that, or at least I thought I heard that this kind of characterized as gifts. I have a challenge with that word, because when you gift something to somebody, you give a child a toy, you really don't care if the kid ever plays with it again. You gave, and this funding, these grants that you award, are more akin to we're investing. The coalition is investing.
Yeah. I've never heard grants referred to as gifts before.
Hoping that they're going to impact other people.
Right. I've never heard grants referred to as gifts before, because they are public dollars that also have to be administered and steered. They're monitored, and they have to provide back the information on how the investment was actually not only expended, where the dollars went, and the impact that it made. But really, truly, you're right. There are investments. They're not gifts, but these are competitive grant programs. These are not just first come, first serve. We score them. We have used national best practices. We know all of the organizations. We talk to them all in advance to make sure that they were right fit for the programs. But in the end, what we are looking at is investments to make sure that more investments will come either through public or private partnerships. But I don't think of them as gifts. These really are investments, and I think they're doing a heck of a job of investing that money so far. And I look forward to coming back in 6 months when we have all the grant reports from round 1 and even beyond that, and really showing you all the impact that these have made. But they're not gifts.
I just have one more thing. You are among a small group that has provided as much feedback and also reporting to the city than any other ARPA recipient that we have. I'll say almost any other. And I appreciate the fact that you are giving us so much of that information back to show us what we've done, what the city has done.
I look forward. It's premature to kind of get into the data for the first round, and it does take time. Most grant periods are a year to a year and a half long. So to get all of the information about impact really does take time, because they had time to spend it. They had time to look at the program and projects. But one of the things we do is we try to be as transparent as possible. It's the city's dollars. It's public money. And it's not. It's a lot of work for us. I don't want to underestimate. Let you think this is easy for us. This is a lot of work. We've done this for 3 cities and a few more. But the reality is this has been an enormous effort on our part. But we really are seeing kind of those seeds that they're speaking to in terms of businesses coming back, programs that have been wanting to have been started. And I think, an additional investment was only going to expand how many people we can help with that and how many we can support, how many businesses we can take further. But also that impact grant, if we were to have additional money, we could give maybe instead of doing 6 grants, we could probably do 10 or 12. That would be huge. And Norwich has, in our mind, we work with kind of a core 40 to 50 organizations, really. There's always a lot of small businesses and organizations and a lot of individual artists. But in general, we tend to think about this larger kind of grant pool as 40 we know will be applying for grant dollars, and kind of a core group that we see in general. But we've met 30% of the applicants were brand new to us. We'd never met them before, and we're so glad that this money becomes the carrot to help them do their work and reach the community, and then they connect with the other providers, and they start to collaborate, and great things happen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Is there further? Alderman Wilson.
Thank you. You know, I want to start by, saying I appreciate the Cultural Coalition's transparency, but also continuously giving us the information as to the blueprint on how to spend this money. Just before the pandemic, we had conversations about what investment looked like when it came to public arts, when it came to culture in the city. And so that was during the beginning of my first term. And that was around the time we were talking about the roundabout downtown and all of those other pieces to it. And the one thing, for me, I've sat here and over the years, even before being on the council, we've had this conversation about what does investment in arts, culture in this city look like? And it's come in waves. And so one of the things, when I look at American Rescue dollars, we're in the phase, as it says in the resolution, many of these organizations are still struggling. They're not, it's evident. And they are not eligible a lot of times or able to go after many of the other competitive grants that other businesses may be able to go after to sustain their craft, their passion, because it's not something where they're putting out something today and expecting the reward tomorrow. Some of these programs like the Bully Busters and whatnot that they do are long-lasting. And so it's the part of understanding that this is a long race. It's a marathon. And we're at a phase in this where they're still struggling. So it's important that we're able to maximize giving opportunities to infuse them as we do other small businesses and other ventures across the city that we see beneficial. But the part that I want us to take a step back and think about is several of the individuals that have come up here are also organizations outside of, and they cover other areas that we always talk about. Mental health. Art has a place there as well. There's art therapy where it's not just sitting in front of a clinician and talking. It's expressing it through other ways, through music. So it's understanding that each culture deals with mental health differently. And so this opportunity of bringing organizations that are overwhelmed, inundated, don't have the funding to provide those opportunities, it gives them a way to be a part of the community and give a service that we have been begging for some time. And so, when we talk about arts, culture, and tourism, it's just that. This is an economic development driver for some of those businesses as well. But it's the bigger conversation of now, when with this allocation, I'm thinking sustainability. And so it's the part of, the Cultural Coalition has done an excellent job of getting us to a place of recognizing arts, culture, and tourism. We rave about all the events that happen in town. We rave about the successes that happen, the people that come. First Friday, it has become, we look at the art galleries open, we look at the people that come. We latch on to the things that happen at Chestnut Street Playhouse, that happen at Norwich Art Council, the partnerships that they form in our schools. And the part is we can't put it on the backs of just those organizations doing it now. We've got to be able to give them more. Because like a business, you can give all the money you need for payroll and supplies, but there are still those structural deficits sometimes that also exist. And so this is no different than that. And so I know that when we talk about being bold, $500,000 is a drop in the bucket for what these organizations give us in this community. They bring big change to our kids, to our families, and if we're talking about, and I've said this since we passed several resolutions for housing projects downtown and in the city. If we're talking about bringing families here, we're also talking about providing them amenities and opportunities that make them want to take their kids to things. And that's not just relying on the rec department. That's not just relying on human services. It's also letting our business community on the arts and culture side know that you have a place here in Norwich, and that we're looking to sustain you beyond just the pandemic, because quite frankly, actors and artists work day in and day out. And with the pandemic, the numbers rising and falling, they still deserve to be paid. They have bills and families to feed, and so we can't dictate that as we still continue to work through it. So for us to be able to provide opportunities to give professional development for sustainability, for financial security, all of those things are important when we talk about this. And so you've done an excellent job of laying out the groundwork for how round one was going to be used. And so part of that, as more organizations come in, that may mean more staffing needed, because the other part is we've been also working and having conversations about cultural districts. And so when we talk arts, culture, and tourism, it's not just the ones that got up. I look at Leffingwell, Norwich Historical Society. All of them play a key role in arts, culture, and tourism. And so if we're going to build a city that is inclusive of every organization and nuance, it's important that we put our bold efforts forward to give that money. Because we've said it time and time again before, we're gonna put a line item in the budget, we're gonna do this. And quite frankly, when you look at the dollars that are coming out of the state of Connecticut, it's peanuts compared to all of the other things we put money towards when it comes to arts, culture, and tourism. So as Norwich, it's us taking a bold step in thanking these entities and businesses that have put us in a position to win. And I've said it probably for the last year, when we work together, we win. This is the council, this is the Cultural Coalition, and other businesses working together to win for the arts, culture, and tourism community. And so, as you said, there's no set way that it has to be spent, but it's also, it gives you a wider lens to be able to provide bigger dollars for bigger projects. So thank you.
And I thank you. And I know on behalf of the arts community, how grateful and how I think, the arts have been undervalued for years by so many municipalities. It's just, and the arts they work very leanly. They are mostly nonprofits. They mostly don't have staffs. They live off the lifeblood of the volunteers. But what I can tell you is part of our work with all of the applicants and even with the community members who are not applying for funding, we really work to understand what their biggest challenges are, right? We know a few organizations in the city that are working off of all volunteers who really shouldn't be working with volunteers. They need staff. They need staff. They need professionalism and staff to really up their level and up their game. And we know that it's going to take something big to make that happen for them, to not just have it happen for 1 year. So we're so well versed in what they're facing. One of the reasons why we're also taking our time with this is because we really want to make sure we're responding in a way that makes sense, so that it's not just giving them money that they're going to go do one program and one and done. We are thinking about that long-term infrastructure of what do they need to be stable and to grow. And if it's staffing, if it's equipment, if it's marketing, we really want to make sure that we're responding with grants and money that will actually help take them to that next level, and not just give it to them and let them go right back into this vicious cycle. But part of this is a collective understanding, not just a one-off understanding of our grantees, and that's what takes the time. We appreciate having the ability to have them, kind of a plus and minus of where we know we need more. We now have realized we need to be providing more professional development for these organizations and businesses. They are too busy doing their daytime jobs to be able to sometimes go and market things on websites and sell tickets and do all these things. So learning professional development skills from other artists, from other nonprofits, from other arts organizations, and from professional business councils is giving them the tools that they need to actually really take this investment and turn it into long-term change. But I'm grateful for all the funding that you have given us in the first round and whatever funding you give us in this round.
Alderman Singh.
Thank you. So I'll just sum up. I echo all the sentiments that was made in this room. So art is, of course, universal language, and it has a lot of unseen and unheard effect on people's psychology. And I have witnessed in many ways how important some artwork could be just to shape the whole society. And it could be voice of many marginalized communities as well. So there's a lot of effects that art bring to the community everything is not dollar and cents, but this thing, what we are doing for our city, it gonna shape up the society. It gonna bring, we all say diversity, this, inclusion, but diversity is a fact now. We all know we live in very diverse place, but inclusion is act. So this body needs to act, and I am in support of this resolution. I think what we are doing is a very important thing for overall our community, and I guess the money is going where it belongs, at those small nonprofits who are doing so much for us, and we cannot really match with the grant money that we are offering them, because they are doing a lot more than what we sometimes see, or we don't see, I will say. So, and there's still a lot of recovery with the artist community, and I think this is good time. We all should be working on, like the thing came up, it was line item at one time. Maybe it's a time we should consider and make it a line item as well, so people are not struggling for these kind of small fundings. And again, I agree, 10,000 is not a big deal, because what they are dealing with is basically just to show them or give them some courage. This is what all we are doing. So I'm very glad with all the reportings that you are giving council on time-to-time basis. And I really like the idea of kind of combining some projects, and you know, that will also increase more coordination between the various nonprofits and other artists themselves as well. So that, I think that collaboration work will, I really like that idea, and hopefully I would like to also see some more inclusive artwork. We do have some projects in Norwich, but a lot of people wanted to see that vibe for Norwich. So it's more welcoming overall when they come, or they are going through Norwich or eating at restaurants. So all these small things are really impactful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I will say that the potential timing, I mean, we're working on the cultural district. We have the third community input session coming up next week, I believe. The timing actually really would line up, really the alignment would be great, because the cultural district would provide, you know, permanent government infrastructure to support the creative sector. So line items can be great, but if they come and go 1 year, this is what happens at the state level, right? The arts got funded 1 year, and then the budget was short, and they cut tourism down to $1. But organizations cannot deal with what they don't know in terms of that big of a change. So providing that support of kind of stability, smaller amounts of stability, but the government kind of permanent infrastructure is critical to success, right? And so I think the timing of the ARPA dollars and our work with the Public Art Committee, the cultural district formation could really all come together to really create kind of a groundswell of infrastructure and support and investment to really then take this to the next level.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further? Alderwoman Gould.
I just want to set the record straight, that I did not say that the grants were gifts. I was talking about the gift of the ARPA dollars to the city of Norwich.
Correct.
I understand that grants have caveats to them and requirements, et cetera. So I was not suggesting that this was a toy that someone was going to play with or not play with.
I appreciate that, and certainly I will. Our grant applications are not necessarily easy. We've made it as easy as possible, but applying for grant is no easy feat sometimes. But I appreciate you saying that. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Is there further? Alderman Grant, Neuendorf, please.
So by us taking action on this ordinance tonight, is this money that you desperately need to be approved tonight?
No.
No, because when we talk about art in Norwich, I agree that you guys have done a pretty fair job. Some of the murals in town are fantastic. It's good to hear that some of the businesses are receiving this money, that the playhouse down the street is doing well. But the thing is we've also put money, I believe, into places like the art space that were dedicated specifically for artists to work in.
We didn't.
No, I'm saying Norwich as a body. And so when we're approving $500,000 in ARPA money and we call it a small drop in the bucket, it concerns me because I think that the taxpayers would appreciate us using this money in a different way. You know, we've already given a fair amount of money towards the coalition, and I just feel like taxpayers would see this as potentially not the right direction that we as a body should be using this money. I would motion that we move on this ordinance at a different time. Resolution and postpone it.
Motion is to postpone action. Do you have a time certain, date?
I would say in 2 council meetings.
You're talking the first meeting in February?
Correct.
For clarity, that date would be
February 6th.
February 6th. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Alderwoman Gould. Discussion on the motion to postpone to February 6th. Alderwoman Gould. Oh, I'm sorry, City Manager.
February 6th would be an appropriate date. I think I'd mentioned it to some council people that on the next council meeting on the 17th, I would be showing a plan of where the ARPA funds are to date, the balances in all the accounts, and the second round proposals that are contemplated for the council's review. So you can place the $500,000 in respect to the other accounts that we're requesting money in, including some important funds to public safety, specifically the police department and fire department. So I respectfully request that I don't know if it's a table or it's just postponing
His
it.
motion was to postpone.
Okay, yeah, that you do that so I can present on the 17th a inclusive presentation on where the funds are and where we suggest future funds should go.
Thank you, John. Is there further discussion on the motion to postpone? Alderman Wilson, please.
So I would say, I mean, you know, it's no secret. I mean, it's been out there since Election Day that my time on the council is coming to an end, and, you know, I will say I respectfully disagree with the postponement. We've waited long enough. We've had this presentation back in the summer. You know, one thing, and I say I pride myself in this past fall of stepping back with many things that could have come forward, just not to make them campaign issues. I did the hard work of getting out and campaigning, not using the dais to set a precedence as to what we can do. And so for me, you know, we've waited quite a long enough time. I mean, I think one of the things, and I've been one of the hardest critics when it comes to the spending of ARPA dollars. We all know I've held up postponed meetings because I wasn't satisfied with where the dollars were going or the information we were given. Yet there's a consistency that I've had since being on this council when it comes to arts, culture, and tourism. And, you know, I think when you look at the ARPA report, which we all have gotten, and I appreciate the job that Josh's office continues to do to keep us up to date on it. There are plenty of areas to discuss for other things, but it's time for us to have a bold movement and move forward with the 500,000. So I will say I respectfully disagree, and I know some already know where I stand on this. You know, I've waited quite some time, and so for me, this isn't about people not deserving it. We talk about recreation and other opportunities in this town. To say that the taxpayers wouldn't agree necessarily with where these dollars are being spent, it is a little baffling to me. for the simple fact that when you look at where our kids are, working in a school, and the programs that some of these grantees have brought to our kids in school, out of school, let's talk about violence in the community. Let's talk about what they see at home. Let's talk about them not having the opportunities over the last 3 years, okay? Our Norwich Board of Ed has taken a bold step. They brought back sports. Night Flight and other organizations are out doing great things to build this community. It's not about recreation only. We have a lot of kids that these things impact. And yes, they're taking their time. But I'm sorry.
Excuse me,
got
could you speak to the motion? You're really expanding the discussion. The motion is on the issue
It's on
of
the
postponement.
And so I respectfully continue that we're talking about a postponement for dollars, and we've waited some time. They gave a proposal, a presentation. They've continued to give us reports. It's time for us to move forward and actually do something that's going to have a positive impact. And possibly they can go back to the drawing board and make some of these other opportunities larger. So I respectfully disagree with the postponement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. City manager,
Mayor?
please.
I don't agree that we've been waiting. The coalition has been spending $500,000 of the first round money, and they continue to spend the first round money. So there's no waiting. They're working on their programs right now. So there is nothing in abeyance at this point. It's an active grant, and it continues to be an active grant beyond today's date. I just think you're doing yourself a disservice by not looking at the big picture of all the grant requests that are in here. $500,000, to be blunt, would be about 25% of what's left. I think we need to look at what the ratios should be at the end. If we put this now and then we realize we're short supporting a public safety project or another flood control project or items like that, then I think we do a disservice to the ARP program. And I'm not, Wendy knows that when I came to her and said there would be $500,000 to go for this program, I think I had to pick her up from the ground because there never has been a number of that much to do impact on it, and that's what it's done. It has done that. So I don't think we've been ignoring the coach rule scene at all. I'm very supportive of it. I'm just requesting that you take a look at it in its wholeness in comparison to other programs, and then making a measured judgment on that. And if it's, after you look at the programs, you find that 500 is a valid number to go forward, then by all means go forward with it. I'm in favor of the concept. I wouldn't have put the 500,000 originally in it if I wasn't. I just think good planning on the part of us should look at the whole picture and not do this piecemeal at this point, and that's what this is.
Thank you, John. Is there further comment on the motion to postpone? Alderwoman Gould.
If Ms. Murray is telling us that she is not in any desperate need of this money in the next month, then I think we should have respect for our city manager, see what he wants to present to the council in its totality, know how much money we have in the account, what other groups maybe have asked now for the first time, and look at the big picture. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't consider giving the Cultural Coalition more money, but maybe not as much money. And if Wendy is not, you know, she's got $175,000 and another $161,000 in the bank right now, so to speak, in her account, so to speak. I don't think making the decision in a month or 2 weeks is going to change any of your programming or anything that's in the pipeline right now. Would that be a correct statement?
One more comment?
Please, yeah.
Yes, I mean, the only thing that we might adjust is we might adjust the grant award amount, but we know that we could definitely probably provide more grants at that point. But that wouldn't change anything from now in terms of our actual administration right now with the grant application process. It would just allow us to scope out what the next steps would be moving forward after that.
Thank you.
Let me just, if I may.
City Manager.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm talking over you. The first grant was about 2% of the ARPA fund, 500,000. This 500,000 now would be at 25% of what's left. So you can see how the ratio is really changed. And that's why it needs to be looked at in its totality. Again, I'm not saying that funds shouldn't go to it. I'm just saying it should be done in the whole picture of what's left and what are all the priorities of the city. That's all.
Thank you, John. Is there further comment on the motion to postpone? I'm going to comment. Having listened to the dialogue, I'm reminded of what I'm going to call the disrespect of our city manager that took place by the prior council when 4 members of that council walked in here with 2 minutes' notice and decided they're going to spend $1.1 million, and he didn't know it was coming. And neither did anyone else, including the public. This request has been presented to us, even though he's asked us not to do it in this manner tonight. That same concern was shared with Wendy before the meeting and myself. John is asking us to keep the entire city in mind. That's all. I support additional dollars for the arts out of what remains. I want to know what the other priorities are. We do have other issues like flood improvements and things of that nature. We have funded some of those improvements, but those are still out there, other ones. I would think the whole council that remains, the 6 of us going forward after tonight, would want to see what that image was. He was planning to present it tonight, but because of the extended public hearings and everything else on the agenda, he chose to put it to the next meeting. Well, it's almost midnight.
That's wrong.
Oh, it is?
They didn't change the
good.
phone from, so you got an hour.
I'm not as tired as I thought I was.
You have an hour of extra time there.
Good news. I think it's a reasonable request. I'm committed to funding more dollars for the arts in the final submission, but I want to see the rest of the city's needs that he was putting together, the package together, and I think the man deserves respect. We all celebrate your ascension, if that's the term, to the State House, Alderman Wilson. That doesn't mean we're not still committed, the 6 of us remaining. I know I am. But I think we have other needs of the city. We need to balance them. So I'll support the motion to postpone until February 6th. I think we're ready to vote unless anybody, no, please.
Alderman Wilson?
No.
Alderman Bertle?
No.
Alderman Singh?
No.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
No.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
That's,
Motion to postpone fails on a 4-3 vote. The resolution is still before us. Is there further discussion? President Pro Tem, please.
Thank you. So, check me on my math. This $500,000 moves forward tonight. That would be a total allocation from beginning to end of $1.1 million? No?
1 million.
Good. That makes the math a little easier. And we received 28.4 from the federal government?
28.8.
In 2 rounds,
Yes.
right? That's 3.5% of the total allocation that came to the city. Just because it's, and I don't, you know, we can argue about numbers all day long. You're right, $500,000 is 25% of the $2 million that we think has not been allocated, but we know that there is at least that much again coming back to the city in money that wasn't spent, or couldn't be spent for the things that we allocated it for, and for money that we are getting back where we made investments in economic development that will come back to the city. So I don't know, you know, what we're arguing about here. I know that there's $150,000 floating out there for a, let's just call it a public safety need. Well, we got a splash pad that we decided that we're not going to build, and we allocated $150,000 for that. So, done, covered. I don't understand why we're arguing so hard about this point. We can't say, well, there's only so much left, and the narrative is not, we're giving 25% to arts and culture in the city of Norwich. No, we're not. We're giving 3.5%, right, out of the total amount of money that was given to us. And it was given to us for this and other purposes, but this is not like we're stretching the rubber band to spend the money in this way. I don't understand why we are arguing about this at this point. There's something else that needs to be said. Just because you disagree with a person's position does not mean you're disrespecting them. I respect the city manager very much, with almost, I would say without bound, okay? But just because I don't agree with him on this issue or on any issue doesn't mean that I've suddenly lost my respect or I'm being disrespectful. We have to stop this narrative that disagreement is automatic discord and disrespect. All right, enough already, okay? Let's start behaving like adults. We're not going to agree. I am not always going to say the things that you want to hear, right? But you can count on them being the truth, and that they're not just a punch in the face because I feel like I want to punch you in the face. All right, the true math here in this case, to finally land my plane, is we're talking about 3.5% out of our total allocation from the federal government going towards programs that are working and doing exactly what we had hoped that they would do. In an environment that is literally a one-off for everyone, right? There's not a single person in this room or within the sound of my voice or within the boundaries of the city, okay, that can say that they went through the last pandemic 100 years ago and they know all the answers. We are literally putting this together with our bare hands as best we can, and I think we did a pretty good job. So this allocation is not unreasonable, and there is no reason why it should be delayed.
If I may, just one other thing. I don't believe you're disrespecting me at all. If I had, I've been in this business about 40 years, and if I had everything go my way, I probably would need to be getting into reality. It doesn't always occur like that. I give my suggestions or recommendations, and the council either agrees with it or doesn't, and we move on. So I've had a lot of budgets and things that councils have disagreed with, all kinds of things. So I don't feel that way. I appreciate the mayor for looking at it that way, but no harm, no foul at all on that. And I don't disagree necessarily with the 500. I'm just saying, look at it with what's left, which is scarce, and look at that in perspective of what we may not be able to fund. And if you lock in this money now, then you can't. I guess you could change it at the next meeting, but it just locks us in with a large portion of what's left. And I think you should see the big picture of that. That's all. And it's not an argument. It's just. I'm not arguing.
Even as an argument, it's a fair argument. It's a fair point.
Yeah, point. Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like I disagreed tonight and it's an argument that it's not that. So, but I thank you for listening to me. I know I spoke more tonight than I usually do. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the resolution? Yeah, Alderman Singh.
A quick question, John. So I think we do have $700,000 coming from solar seal.
I couldn't hear, there was a cough.
So this year, we should be getting $700,000 from solar seal back? Was that part of the equation, or?
In two segments. One year, we'll get a portion of it, and the next year, we'll get the other portion. So we won't get all seven this year. Is that correct, Josh? Right, yeah.
But so let's say we are getting $350,000 this year, right, from solar seal?
Yeah, it's like 400 and 300, something like that, but
But
whatever
when-
it is, it's partial.
But when you were doing that, let's say your analogy, 25%, were you including that into that equation or not?
Yeah, that's in the pot of proposals that we would have. How do we reallocate funds that haven't been utilized? Do we want to stop programs that haven't been progressing? That's all in the report for next week. We're trying to consolidate all the funds we have so you can make sound decisions on it.
Okay. Thank you.
It's my understanding that those funds are paid back to the city at the end of their first year of operations and at the end of their second year of operations. I believe that's how it was
That's
set
about
up.
right. Yeah,
in the
so it's 2 years,
In the
yeah.
agreement. You won't see it now. They're just beginning operations, literally, as we sit here in the last week or two. They've been producing product. So 2 years, a year from now and 2 years from then. John, I have to ask questions. We began this venture in 19, the ARPA dollars. Am I remembering correctly?
No, 20.
20, when we actually received the
Yeah.
first check of 14 million change? April? Or was it May?
Refresh my memory.
May of 21.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we had started looking at what we're going to get.
Yes,
But we didn't
prior.
authorize it until 21.
And all funds must be allocated in 4 and spent within 6? Is that correct?
They have to be obligated prior to that, but everything needs to be completed by 2026, I believe.
Okay. Not to delve into your report too deeply, but the issue of recapture, something community development refers to as when funds haven't been spent in the manner in which they were applied for. That issue, is that still open, or is that issue closed, and you know what that number represents?
We're close to it. We're not recapturing as much in one area as I thought, because when I sent out an email to prod the recipients into
Habitat.
moving forward, yeah, that's one. They came back with a very ambitious plan now, so I want to give respect to that. So we won't be repurposing as much as I thought we were. And I don't want to say hope, because obviously I thought the program was good. It's original content. It's just that it wasn't working out with their stipulations on the type of houses they need and things like that. Our houses were larger and not conducive to compact places of residence.
Thank you. Further discussion? Anyone? Thank you. Roll call on Resolution 5.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Excuse me. Do you want me to read number 6?
Yeah.
Resolution 6 deals with an appointment that may be not quite ripe at this moment. I think there's plans later in the evening to,
That's correct.
Yeah, the order of that caught my attention too.
I think it could be just postponed till later in the meeting.
Resolution 7, relative to creating and adopting cultural calendar for the city of Norwich.
Motion, please, to bring this to the floor. Alderwoman Bertho, Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Alderwoman Gould.
Since the Norwich Board of Education already maintains a cultural calendar, I'd like to make a friendly amendment to Resolution Number 7 that we, rather than we have staff here to create a calendar and maintain a calendar, that we provide a link to the Norwich Board of Education's cultural calendar. And I think that we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. They do an excellent job. Everybody's talked about how wonderful the Board of Education's cultural calendar is. I think it makes a lot of sense that we provide a link from the city's website to their cultural calendar, rather than trying to duplicate the efforts of the Board of Education.
Thank you. Is there a second? Alderman Grant Neuendorf seconds the motion. The motion is to amend the language to provide a link on the city's website so that people can access the calendar on the Board of Education's website. Is there discussion at this time? Pro Tem, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'll pose the question to you as chair. Is Alderman Singh is the catalyst for both the Board of Ed's calendar and this action? I'd like to know if this amendment meets with his satisfaction.
I will say no, and I'll elaborate the reason. So, of course, we are very happy that Norwich Public School was the first one to adopt the cultural calendar. And if you like, I can give you a little overview as well while we have this opportunity. So, cultural calendar was made in 2020 with the intention that it will bring community together and it will bring education in the community about different days. It was also, those efforts were applauded by actually Global City Norwich as well in NCDC report for December 2020. And a lot of directors were in support of it. And actually, some of them emailed to add some of the days as well, which were added. And then Norwich Public School was informed about adding those days, and they edited the calendar and added those days. And actually, what they did was very nice. They also give a platform where people can request cultural days to be added to the calendar. So they already had that calendar on their website for 2 years. We did add a few days to it on the request of community. But I will say having city using their own platform and projecting that calendar on city website, I think it will be more beneficial because let's be honest, like how many people go on the school website? I think having something on the city website where we have somebody who can put up a post on city social media about different days, that gives a greater impact and greater audience, and it's not just limited to the Norwich Public School. So that'll be my argument to very respectfully on that advice that was given to us, I will say. But I will not support that amendment due to this reason, because I think we have opportunity to reach broader audience. There are a lot of people who just go on city website for so many different reasons, for the governance, for paying taxes. So I think there will be more outreach. And actually, if anybody wants to make amendment, which I didn't made it because I was like, we might not get support of it, because there are a lot of cities whose leadership also make videos wishing different communities different days, but that's up to the leadership itself. So we don't want to force something on the leadership at this time. But I think it does give opportunity to the leadership as well, because now they have cultural calendar they can look at, and they can make their videos being part of the city and reflecting city values. But that's, I think, more work, which I'm not sure how many people will want it to do at this time. But having cultural calendar and maintaining it It's very easy. I have done that for 2 years, and even this year I gave additional days to the Norwich Public Schools so they don't have to make artwork, and even though they do have master files and they can do all the editing they want to, but it usually just take maybe 1 hour in a year to update the calendar, because there are some days like Chinese New Year which get changed, like this is Ox year and Tiger year. So I think it's very important that we understand what's going on in the community. Also, other things actually that came to my attention was somebody having issue with cultural calendar, and they said maybe people get confused, but Norwich Human Resource every year send email to all the city employees about list of the holiday schedule. So I don't really see any issue or any confusion with that. Those holidays are entirely separate, and this cultural calendar is most of the educational and awareness purposes. And we are very welcome in city, and even in past 12 years I have seen we have gone to the extent for acceptance for different communities. Like last year we had 17 flag raising ceremonies. So I think there's more work that needs to be done on these kind of issues to bring communities together. And somebody in the audience also said build bridges. So I think this cultural calendar could be building bridges between the city hall, government. We need more diverse communities to serve on our boards. So it has greater impact. It's not just celebrating different holidays or just posting something on social media, hey, happy this, happy that. So I think it has a greater impact for our community. And again, diversity is a fact, but inclusion is an act. And this is what we are doing through Cultural Calendar. We are acting on inclusion on different people who live in our community. So this is my argument on that. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. The motion before us is to provide the link. Is there further discussion? Seeing none.
Alderman Wilson?
No.
Alderman Berto?
No.
Alderman Singh?
No.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
No.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
It's 4-3, 3-4.
The motion fails on a 4-3 vote to provide a link to the Board of Education's calendar. Is there further discussion on Resolution 7 or questions? Alderwoman Gould.
So, Mr. Salamone, what staff do we have who is going to be responsible for maintaining this calendar?
Well, I'm not sure what this, what this topic would come under. Normally, departments maintain their part of the, our page based on their uses, like planning updates their page, public works, police, and so on. So we'll have to figure out where the niche is for this at this point. We kind of decentralize the maintenance of these, except with centralized questions, we use IT to help facilitate if there's an issue.
And at whose discretion is it that we're going to be putting different holidays on the calendar? Are we limiting, are we opening this to every holiday under the sun? How do we determine what's a holiday, what's not a holiday?
Well, that is something we'll have to work on, because I just got some information today that there's 103 at the state level official holiday. So it's more than that's in this item. So we have to come up with some standard. I wouldn't want people to think that we emphasize one holiday over the other. You know, so it's difficult to be totally inclusive on this, because there's a lot of cultures that may or may not be recognized here. So it'll take some work. I think it's a very good start. I love the artwork and things like that in it, but we'll have to figure out how it fits into city operations. I don't have an answer. That's a long answer for a short answer. I don't have an answer really on that yet.
Alderwoman Gould, you still have the floor.
No, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Singh?
Yeah, actually, I just want to say, just for record, so there are 64 days right now which are on the list, and artwork has been made for up to maybe 54. So these kind of projects are actually community-driven projects. So let's say after we put up this calendar on city website and city gets request for adding few more days to it, I guess that could be, that's very easy to implement, and it shouldn't be hard, you know. And you're right, we probably have less than what state have recognized, but there's a reason, because when we gather all this input, it was within this specific community. And we have not outreached to other cities. We have only reached out to different faith-based communities and nationalities which are part of it. But in the last 2 years, we didn't really add too many days to it. But if you get a request, I will say we should honor the request. We should do a little more research to that. And, you know, they can submit their description of the day. They can submit the artwork they want to see. And anyways, I just want to offer here, I am more than willing to do anything that you need help with. Thank you.
Is there further discussion?
I think President Pro Tem had a question also.
Joe? Did you need a
No,
Oh, I'm sorry.
He said what I was going to say and then some, so we're fine.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
I hereby move pursuant to Connecticut General Statute.
Just gotta wait a minute, right? No?
No.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead, please.
1-200, that the members of the Norwich City Council go into executive session for the purpose of discussing strategies and negotiations with respect to collective bargaining. The following shall be asked to participate during all or portions of this executive session at the request of the City Council: City Manager John Salamone, Comptroller Josh Pothier, and Corporation Counsel Michael Driscoll. Further, I hereby move pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 1-200 that the members of the Norwich City Council go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment plans of City Clerk Betsy Barrett, who does not require that these discussions be held at an open meeting. City Manager John Salamone shall be asked to attend this executive session at the request of the council.
Thank you. Is there a second? Alderman Wilson. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. Executive session 319, please. Council, come back to order. Let the record show that no votes were taken during the executive session. Have a motion to return, please. Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderwoman Berto. Roll call.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. We are, again,
Resolution number.
So we can go to number 2.
Two?
You want to go back to 2?
2 and 6.
yeah.
Number 2, relative to the approval of the UPSEU 911 dispatchers collective bargaining unit agreement and the related budget changes to fiscal year 2022-23.
A motion, please, to the floor. Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh.
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould.
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf.
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia.
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom.
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. At this time, I'd like to recognize Alderman Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Nystrom, fellow members of the council. It has been a pleasure to be seated here before you for the past 3 years. Bittersweet moment that I am leaving exactly where I started. I have a lot of individuals to thank for getting me to this place to represent and serve this city. I want to thank each and every supporter and voter who has helped me get elected to the Norwich City Council and into my new role as a state representative of the 46th District. I want to give special thanks to City Clerk Betsy Barrett, City Manager John Salomone, Corporation Counsel Mr. Driscoll, Ms. Bonnie Kuprik, Jackie Barbarossa as well, and the Comptroller Josh Pothier for providing me the tools to do the job as an alderman, and every other staff member in the city who has made the hard work on behalf of each and every resident. I want to also thank, my Democratic colleagues in the Democratic caucus. I couldn't have asked for a better group of individuals to work closely with. And don't worry, I'm not leaving out Ella Miles or Mr. Mark Betancourt, too, who have had the opportunity to serve with. Thank you, President Pro Tem DeLucia, and thank you, Mayor Nystrom. There's one thing that I will never forget for me. It's during the first term, allowing me to sit in the same seat that my twin brother sat in. It's moments like that, I think, that makes this special. We work together, and allowing me to honor that, something that I will always remember. I started my first term during the chaos of a pandemic, as I've stated, and I thank both the city manager, Mayor Nystrom, as well as President Pro Tem DeLucia and Alderwoman Gould for being a part of that large group of individuals that had to weather that storm. To all of the other Republican colleagues, including Alderman Nash, it too has been a pleasure to serve on this council and have spirited debates and compromise and work together for what's best for our city. As I get ready to vacate my seat here on the council, I just look back on a lot of the things that we've been able to do. Pension obligation bond, we've been able to weather a pandemic. We've brought life to this community through festivals and all sorts of different events. We've expanded opportunity for recreation. And for me, the biggest part is, this past election, we were able to get through the finish line, rebuilding our school system for our kids and improving and revitalizing neighborhoods. To the remaining members on the council after tonight, I leave you with the challenge that it's up to each and every single one of you to compromise for the city over the next few months while my replacement is decided by the voters of the city. And as you always, and we always say, putting the interest of the city first in all that you guys are gonna face. I appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate each and every voter from the bottom of my heart for the opportunity to serve the Rose City in this capacity. And I continue to plan to do what's best for this city in the state as I elevate to the new role of state representative. As I've told Mayor Nystrom, I will do my best when not in session or in meetings to attend meetings, to be around the city and truly be a part of this continuing process. So I truly and humbly thank each and every one of you. And so at this time, I would humbly request a suspension of the rules to add a petition and communication to accept my official resignation from the Norwich City Council.
Motion has been made. There's a second, please. Alderwoman Gould. Motion for suspension of the rules. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson.
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto.
Yes.
Alderman Singh.
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould.
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf.
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia.
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom.
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. The floor is yours, sir. You wish to submit?
the mint.
A day planner?
At this time, I'd ask for a motion to accept the correspondence submitted by our colleague, Alderman Darrell Wilson.
So moved.
Motion by President Pro Tem DeLucia, second Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? President Pro Tem.
Just, thank you for your service to the city and your continued service in Hartford.
Thank you. Alderman Singh.
Thank you. So I also want to say thank you very much for your service, and I think you are a role model of many youngsters. So keep doing all the good work. Now you have a bigger platform that you can do a lot good for a lot of other folks, for different communities. And on the personal note, I was running for Board of Ed, and you were the one who actually pursued that I should be running for council instead. So I give you all my credit that I'm here because you were the one who energized and you motivated me for this position. So thank you very much for your service to this community, and I hope you will continue making bigger successes for our community as you are in the much larger role that you can play for this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Alderwoman Gould.
Well, I will throw in my congratulations and wishing you the best of luck in Hartford.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
It's 6-0.
Motion passes 6-0.
You're not going to stay?
We can do Resolution 6 at this time.
Motion, please, to place Resolution 6 on the floor. Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderwoman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
6-0.
The resolution is adopted, 6-0. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Nope.
Nope.
Got a couple more.
What? I was already.
So, under suspension of beliefs again. Can you
Yep.
You want me to hand them out, or you want
Yeah,
to pass
yeah,
them
we hand them out. What's being handed out is now Resolution 8, and due to the resignation of our colleague, we now must act tonight to schedule a special election for his replacement.
I'm sorry.
What? Yeah. Any willing sponsors here, or all six?
No, I'm good.
All six?
All six, good.
Okay. Title relative to accept a letter, wait a minute, sorry. Relative to hold a special city election for the council seat vacated by Darrell Q. Wilson on Wednesday, May 24th, 2023.
Thank you. A motion, please, to bring this forward. Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderman Berto. Is there discussion or questions? Okay. For the limited audience, the date is May 24th.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
And it's a Wednesday. Yeah, that's something else, but, yeah. So, roll call.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
6-0.
The resolution adopted 6-0.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Alderman Grant Neuendorf, second. Roll call, please.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
6-0.
A motion to adjourn passes 6-0. Drive home safe.